everybody? A little different show coming in tonight here on the Sportscast, as you guys normally would tune into. We've talked about it on this show before. Me and Knocker have different interests, Knock.
Yes.
A lot of the interests the same. We both like golf.
Of course.
You're a music guy. We're both history buffs, stuff like that. And we've always kind of wanted to do something, as much as we love talking sports on the show, which is our, die hard. That's what we are, die hard sports fans.
That's bread and butter.
I want to learn. I like to learn. I want to learn about other people's experiences. I want to learn about stuff that other people have done in life that I might not ever get to do. Someone that's had an experience that I'd like to experience, whether it's good or bad, to get their feelings on it. And same with you, Knock. I mean, you had the country band in here about a month ago.
Sure,
and it's
absolutely.
pretty much a music show. I mean, you guys did talk some sports stuff because Jacob happened to be a hockey fan.
Right.
Yeah, so what this is, guys, I don't know exactly what the name of the show is going to be. I call them exclusives right now because that's what they are.
Right.
We're having exclusive interviews, conversations with people over the rest of the time. We're going to do 2 podcasts a week. We're going to go with the Sportscast show as usual. I'm going to try and keep it on Wednesdays, and then we'll move this podcast depending on
whoever is
whatever
available.
Their time is available. Could
Sure.
be Friday, whatever. It'll be up on our YouTube channel again. Thank you, everybody, again. We got the YouTube up last week. Everybody loved it.
Right, great reviews on that.
I had a few people tweeting pictures to me about watching on 70-inch because everyone's got their smart TVs now.
Exactly.
So,
right.
But today we've got a very special guest in the house. He's a very special person to me. He's a special person to my father. He's been my best friend since my freshman year of high school. He's been there for me through a lot of my life, and I want to welcome Mr. Dan Martinez to the show. Dan, welcome to the show.
And thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Do we have a little pause? I should have children. I don't have the children. Dan Martinez grew up with me. I'll let you introduce kind of yourself, but just his background. He is a lawyer and background. He's a well-traveled person, and he's here with us today to share something that happened in his life, Knocker, that a lot of people in their life probably know someone. I'm sure everyone knows someone that's dealt with this type of situation.
Yeah.
We'll get to in a little bit on the show. But Dan, go ahead, Dex. Tell a little bit of people about yourself. And,
well, it's funny because I actually wanted to start off the show by having a conversation about a time when, like, how long ago that we've actually known each other. Right?
Yeah, we have. We have. We've known each other a long time.
Yeah. So one of my favorite Josh Pacheco memories is back when I know that I was 16 because my driver's license still had that restriction line on it.
Yeah. Remember when they had that on there? Yeah,
no, I don't.
No, yeah, you don't. Did they have paper license when you were back? What did they give you?
They just gave you a number on a piece of
I
paper.
think it was
so you're good.
Right? Yeah.
I think it was horse and buggy back
Right.
then.
Yeah. Yeah, you texted me today about this story when we were just talking about, coming on the show. Turn my headphones up just a little bit, Renee. I know I like mine loud. I'm sorry. And if you guys hear that in the background, we have 3 fans going.
It's hot as fuck out
Because
here.
it's 105 degrees in Southern California. So, but again, we were texting back and forth. He's like, yeah, man, I was just thinking about that time where, you're about to talk right now where we got, I guess got out of trouble.
Huh? Yeah, we didn't actually get in any trouble. That's why the story's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but it's an idea that I've actually been playing with since my birthday, which is that if you can trigger a positive memory in somebody else, you can make them smile. You can create an environment around yourself by which you actually yourself choose to smile. I mean, smiles are actually contagious. Happiness is contagious. Yeah. So if you can if you can manipulate the environment around you to create an energy of positivity, you can actually create a positive feedback loop. That you can. It's an energy that you and I have been feeding off of for the past week, to be honest. Yeah. And it's just an experiment that I've actually been playing with people. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I was doing with you earlier. It's one of the things I was doing with you earlier in anticipation of coming on the show. Yeah. Which was to trigger a positive memory. And this personally is my favorite Josh Pacheco memory, which is why I wanted to share it with your audience because they've gotten to know you over the years, but they probably don't know you the way that I know.
I haven't shared this story before that you're about to go with, so go ahead.
Yeah, and feel free to. This is my first time on the air, so feel free to let me know if I'm not speaking to the mic or anything.
Oh yeah, don't worry, I'll get you. I got you covered, so don't worry about it. Mute my computer because I think the fan's picking up my computer. If you can't, I think it's number 2, auxiliary 2. Yeah, there you go. I'll let you know when to turn back on. For some reason, I'm getting feedback on it. But go ahead, dude.
Got it. Okay, so I want to start off on like a light note, right?
Yeah.
So this was a time where I was 16 years old, so I don't exactly know how old you were. But you and I had snuck out these 2 girls from their parents' house.
Yes.
And
one being my
Oh,
girlfriend.
I'm very interested.
One,
Yeah.
Well, one being my girlfriend
Yeah.
at the time, which was Brooke, which was her dad was the coach at the hockey rink. Remember when I dated Brooke?
Yes.
Bryant?
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
And her cousin. I couldn't think of her name. Did you find what her name was?
her name is Kim.
Oh, Kim. There you go, man.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but yeah, so we had taken him out, and I think instead of going to the library, we had a few drinks.
Yeah.
And I wasn't drinking because I was driving, like
Yeah.
when we were still responsible kids. And when we were going to drop them off, this memory's burned into my brain. The girls were asleep in the back seat of the car.
Yeah, we'll call him asleep.
Yeah. and we definitely had open containers in the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's likely we had some other kind of paraphernalia in the car.
At the time, yes, I think we were smoking. I think that's probably right after we got caught in the back of Edwards Cinema by the security guard.
That's a different story.
I'm going to learn a whole lot today.
okay.
No,
That's
the
the
Josh
good.
Pacheco that I know is a completely different person.
Yeah. So we got off the freeway, yeah.
No, yeah. So actually, we were going from somewhere north of Grand, right?
Yeah.
And for everybody who lives in Glendora, right, you can picture driving southbound on
On
Glendora,
210 freeway,
on Grand Avenue, and you're crossing underneath the overpass.
Yeah.
Well, their house was the first left after the overpass.
Yep. Right by the little golf course, right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And it was blocked off.
Oh, Lord.
Completely blocked off by cones, and it was a sobriety checkpoint that was set up. They're right in front of
When
that.
you get off right there, Pops, you know you get off like you
Oh, I
can't.
know exactly.
Like, it swings you into
The clover
street.
leaf onto Grant.
Dude,
Yes.
and
There
you
is
see those
nowhere
lights,
to go.
and Dan's in like, because Dan had a cool truck like back then in high school. He had like the lifted Chevy white
Oh, yeah,
Silverado.
sure.
So it's like the cool truck to ride around. So it's like, but when you're cops and you see a guy driving a lifted white Silverado with
Yeah, there's like there's 8 things customized on it that they can pull you over for just for
Right.
that.
yeah,
Exactly.
right. Like he had blacked out windows.
In
and-
retrospect, it's really stupid, but
yeah, it was stupid. But
Well, you
Well,
didn't
it
know
just-
when you
well,
got
it-
out the freeway.
well, in
but-
retrospect, I mean,
yeah.
after reading police reports as an attorney, we're basically like you're giving the police officers a reason to pull you over,
Right.
And you don't
Yeah.
see it that way.
Probable
when you're a kid.
cause.
yeah,
Hey, but back to the story, right? You got to
Yeah.
keep me in track.
yeah.
So we're heading down Grand Avenue. We're going underneath the underpass. Now we're stuck. We're getting funneled into the sobriety checkpoint, and I'm sober, but I'm driving with kids in the car that I'm not allowed to be driving. There's we're breaking all kinds of different rules for paraphernalia, all regulatory violations, no crimes against
Right.
people, but regulatory violations.
Yeah, we look guilty.
Yeah, we are guilty.
Well,
To
I'm
be
assuming
completely
you're all under 21.
Well, we're under 21.
I was under 16 and a half.
So you're not even supposed to be driving with somebody in the car.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
Yeah,
here.
for those, do they have that rule? You're an
Sure they
attorney.
do.
Do they have that rule?
Well, they do have that rule. And that,
Still?
they-
Now, do you have a 6-month
Yeah,
probation
they have
on
that.
your driving?
They have that plus all kinds of other rules.
Oh,
we're
really?
going in the nanny state direction, not in the other direction.
Okay, so we got
Go,
the
go, go.
freeway.
Yeah.
So we got
Go,
the
go, go.
freeway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now the cops now they're looking into the vehicle.
Because they're stopping everybody. It's
Yeah.
a checkpoint, yeah.
They're stopping everybody. They look at my driver's license. They see obviously the details of it.
Yeah.
They're shining the light. They're shining the light in the back, and they see the girl sleeping in the back.
Like, Brooke is passed out. My
Oh.
girlfriend's just, like, out, dude. Like, on the front seat, like, bah, like, she's not just sleeping.
Okay, go
So-
on.
Yeah. So then the cops take a look at my license, look at the back seat, look at my face, look at the back seat, and then they're like, she needs to put on her seatbelt in the back.
Yeah.
Hands me a Mothers Against Drunk Driving lollipop,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and then let
think
us
I
on
ate that
let us on our merry little way.
Really?
And then 100 yards down the road, right in front of that cemetery,
Yeah.
Brooke got out and fucking threw up in
Oh,
that
yeah, that's right.
in that Tower Records bag that I had in the
Yeah.
car, fucking within like visual shot of these cops.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Dude, I ate that fucking lollipop, too. That thing was fucking good. I was
That
like,
was
thank
nice,
you,
huh?
officer. I'll take that lollipop. Got the munchies right now.
Wow,
That
imagine
was
doing
good.
that today. You
Yeah.
guys would all be
But
in
that's
jail.
just like one of the mini stories. I mean, me and
course.
this guy have gone
Yeah.
through a lot. So, as we move on, people, you guys can call the show because if you have questions, concerns, comments, the phone line is open. Is the computer done updating, Renee? Yeah. All right, that's good.
You need to update your Skype, though.
Does it?
Yeah.
Right before you use it?
Well, it says this version of Skype's going to be discontinued soon, so you have to update
Oh yeah.
your
Well,
Skype.
okay.
Bitchin'.
Well, hey, guess what? Knocker's bringing. We're bringing the other computer in next week.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Oh no, it's gonna be here today, but I didn't want to transfer Skype. Like, I just want to fuck with anything for the show. So 626-208-9040 is the number. Dan, what else? Again, your profession, what you do. You're a well-traveled guy as well. So just give everyone a little background.
Yeah, I'm
also.
not super great at talking about myself, but I mean, to the extent you want to read up on me,
Yeah.
I'm starting a website, www.tmgt.us, because fuck yeah, American's great, right?
Hell yeah.
And it's basically that's the Machiavellian Game Theorist. It's my general philosophy and analytical approach towards life, and it'll all be reflected out there. We'll have plenty
Did
of
it
time.
hit you too hard?
This is going way.
Did it hit you too hard?
Yeah, kind of. You know.
I can try to.
I'm hanging on.
Just slow it down for him. Slow it down for Knock. He's on a cocktail right now.
I don't have a senior citizen.
Oh, I'm picturing blackout drunk Falcon going, whoa! What the hell's going on here?
No, we warned it. We told everybody this is what.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's gonna get pretty heavy.
It's gonna get heavy.
And fine, but the object here is to help people and to learn from experience.
Oh, absolutely. That's
right?
why I don't.
That's why we're here tonight.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want to spend too much time talking about
I understand.
the self-promotion traveling part of myself.
Understand.
No, you have to talk about it. So do you want to just dive? Do you want to dive right into it?
Why don't you let me tell the story and then you keep me on track, because I have a tendency to hit to go off tangent, and then wherever something isn't clear to you, just ask me questions.
Do you want me to preface this with what you're going to talk about? Do you want to just go
let me
into
get?
it?
I'll start telling the story.
Okay,
go for
it. Dan, this is again. Anybody that, again, you need help with this. This is a podcast again we're doing to help you guys. To help those, because if you know someone that can if he can prevent Dan, you like you said before you came, if I can prevent one person,
Sure, we can help one person tonight.
Yeah, if I can make one person smile, right, or help one person alleviate some anxiety or depression or some sadness, or if I can help one person learn something, expand their critical thinking, enlighten the world a little bit. I mean, then if it just happens with one person, then all this time was worth it.
Absolutely, totally agree.
I agree.
We're here for you.
You got the stage.
Yep. So in May of 2015, I was over at my mom's house, because my mom had been complaining that her hard drive had crashed. So I just finally decided to get her an iMac,
Stay up on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I decided finally to get her an iMac because she's old. She's not really going to use it too much. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to be with her for the rest of her life. So I'm at her house setting up the iMac. And, I mean, obviously I'm never going to forget this phone call. But I get a call from one of my aunts. And she tells me that, she's like, look, we need to talk. Your dad killed himself this morning.
Whoa, just like that.
Just like that.
Wow.
That's how you
that's how you find out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Well, and that's why I'm starting off the story this way, because I might as well lead you guys down the same path.
Absolutely.
The same path road that I.
And I'm gonna have a tendency probably to jump in and cut you off, just because I'm gonna have questions. So I don't want to feel like I'm cutting you off at certain points, because this I just, now that it's out, I just found this out a week ago. So as being one of your best friends, I've got some questions too as well.
Yeah, of course.
That's great. Okay, so go on. You heard it from a phone call just like that.
Yeah, just like that. So remember, my family's in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
That's something. You need to let everyone. Yeah,
exactly. So my family's in Chile, and cause my family's actually from Chile. They moved here during the dictatorship. I think it was 1980 or so, 1979, 1980. But my dad, after living here in the States, was retired in a semi-state in Chile, and he was staying at his apartment.
Okay.
And he has this beautiful apartment, which is actually my apartment now, my sister and I's apartment. And I think it's on the 9th or 10th floor, and that's basically how he died. We'll get into the details a little bit later, but I mean, fundamentally, nobody ever is really going to know exactly the motivations that were going through his brain at the time he died. And the reason why I say that is because it's overly simplistic to say that when somebody kills themselves, if you don't actually know, if they don't actually leave a note,
right,
you don't actually know what happened.
Keep this up.
Try and stay on the mic, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't really actually know what happened, right? So there's different possibilities that could happen. And at the time, I thought there were 3 different possibilities. And the possibilities were somebody pushed him, right? He tripped and fell like it was an accident, or it was intentional.
Right.
Like.
Okay, so he's 9 stories up and he ends up on the ground.
Yeah.
I got when you took that phone call.
Yep.
Was your first thought, because I'm thinking about, like, if I got that phone call, right?
Sure.
Is the first question, how'd it happen? Like, is that your first, like, when you said you killed himself, like, how?
Well,
because to me, I think that the way that someone goes out, I guess, because we can talk. I feel like I don't want to offend people talking, but I guess this is what the subject we're talking about. The way that someone goes out, like, do I want to? I feel like I want to know that. Is that something you wanted to know?
Well, the only way that I can describe it is...
Like, what was your first question?
Yeah, well, the only way I can describe it is a couple different ways, right? One is you're in a state of shock. Like, you can't really... your brain can't really comprehend exactly what's going through in real time. The second is also for what I do for a profession. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I read police reports all day. And I understand that people's perception of reality isn't always correct. And I understand that the world's a more complicated place than people make it seem sometimes. So I actually had a relationship with the aunt that called me, who was a non-blood relative. She was the wife of one of my uncles, his brother. And but I don't believe anything anybody tells me. It's just kind of the way that I go through life. I always
Does that come from you being a lawyer?
It's partially comes from being my lawyer, and also becomes a relationship that I have with my dad. We'll get to this later on in the discussion, because he slowly lost grasp with reality.
Dementia type?
No.
Alzheimer's,
He was a bright guy. It was more.
He just got fed up, frustrated.
I mean, we'll go down the whole pipeline. It'll make sense by the time that it's over.
All right.
But the best way that I could describe it is when you want something to be true and you believe something to be true, and it's not true. It's one thing when you lie to other people. But it's a completely different thing when you lie to yourself. Because when you lie to yourself, you have to actually start building an entire construct, an entire life around that narrative. Because at the end of the day, all of us only get one priority number one. And if your priority number one is this lie, then you slowly start to distort your reality, and you bend the other rules of reality to fit that underlying
Fitting the square peg into the round hole. Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
No, that's just to simplify what you two are talking about. Are you saying that he believed his own lies?
Well, I mean, I think he believed his own version of reality was objectively true. His own subjective version of reality was objectively true.
Give me an example of that.
So, like,
I'm just trying to get get in the mind of someone that thinks like that.
So say you took a bunch of acid right now, right? Hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
And the walls were melting.
Okay.
To you, subjectively, from your perspective, the walls would really be melting.
Right, because that's what I'm seeing.
That's what you're seeing.
Right.
But to everybody else, the walls are just fine. Right? So we all live in a subjective reality, and this is the way that I describe this to people, is that if you pictured yourself living in a house, right? This is the world you see around you. This is the world you see around you at this very moment. The only way you and I are communicating at this very moment in time is through an agreement that the sounds that are coming out of our voice box, right?
Yeah.
Meet up with an objective set of rules called grammar and language. And since you were encoded, like your brain synaptic patterns have these rules encoded in your brain, you can understand the grunts that are coming out of my mouth as language, and pictures appear in your brain. Right? This is the way communication fundamentally works. So I forget specifically what the question was. Subjective versus objective reality, right? So we have to have this objective viewpoint in order for us to even be able to communicate. So right now we're communicating through the objective language of English. So if you picture yourself back in that house, right? Yeah. Everything in the house is your perception of reality. The walls could be bleeding, everything from the acid,
well, yeah,
right?
it's what I want to,
But there's a window, right, where I can peek into your house, and you can peek into my house. And that window is the objective reality. And the thing is that if you start to believe in a lie, and you start to create a narrative for yourself, you start to get farther away from that window.
Well, of course, if someone lives a lie, it becomes part of their lifestyle.
Well, and eventually you can lose connection with the objective reality, and that objective reality is the window by which you have communications with other human beings.
So back, what was that question?
What do you mean?
To your aunt, after she told you that, what did you say? Like, what was your reaction?
To be honest, I think I only said okay.
Do you not remember? Because I mean,
wow.
It's something where you just
no. To be honest, I think the only thing that I said was okay. I mean, I'm dead serious.
Okay.
Because look, and what was going on in my brain were two things.
It's going way too fast. You can't comprehend.
Yeah, one was that state of shock. My brain starts running a mile a minute. Right.
You can't catch up that fast.
And the second was I don't actually believe what anybody tells me.
Right.
So I read police reports for a living and see that people are full of shit all the time. So my plan is, like, I think it was a Thursday when I found out. And the funeral was going to be on a Saturday, so I had to get on a plane. So, but the thing was, like, when I got there, I was gonna look at the police reports. I was gonna go to the apartment. I was gonna see everything, all the information that I could to make my own decision. I'm not just gonna believe what somebody else told me.
Sure.
Right.
So then what started was obviously I told my mom, right, because they were married. They divorced in 2001, I believe.
You got the
phone
phone
she called
call
you first
before your mom got the phone call?
Yeah.
You got the
Well,
call
my mom,
first.
yeah,
up
they
here.
were
Or
they
you
they
just
were
happen to
divorced.
answer the phone, like
You have to keep in mind they were divorced. So like
Okay.
they weren't on good terms at all, and they probably divorced back in 2001.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So she wouldn't have got.
She would not have gotten the phone call. So I got the phone call on my cell phone while I was at my mom's house just by random chance.
Right.
That's I don't that getting that phone call that's got, like you said, Naka. It's just got you. There's probably a loss of words. You probably don't even know.
Well, your brain's
At
going
that point.
100 miles an hour, but I'm going to get to your human first reaction is, okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear the fact of what you just said. I can't react to it. I can't. There's a billion questions, but they're coming too fast for me to even start. So
Yeah.
okay, and that's buying me time to try and figure out where I'm going to go with this.
Exactly. It's a wise thing that you're saying, because that's a good description of what's going on, which is that it was what was it? It was a situation that was hard for the brain to fully comprehend, given the life
Sure.
experience I had at the time.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like
There's like a not believe kind of thing to it.
No, you believe it. It's just
Oh, it
there's-
was
there's-
totally believable.
There's 10,000 questions, and your subconscious is doing all this, and your mind's doing all this, but your physical reaction is going to be okay. And like I said, it's a buffer. It's okay, that happened. Now I'm trying to buy time to figure out what I do next.
So you break the news to your mom.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And
how
then the other thing too is the focus starts to become, and I'm not going to get too much into my sister, but one of the focuses in that I have to tell my sister too, because that's another thing that nobody's ever
you're
written.
in the same house when you get the phone call.
Me and my mom are.
Okay.
But my sister's work.
Okay.
And there's no fucking guide for how you call your sister.
Sure,
and tell her this
absolutely.
shit. So the only thing I can think of is to like have a face-to-face conversation. with her.
Right.
Right.
But so kind of what proceeds from there is basically just a series of things really that you have to do, right? Because since logistically he was in Chile, we had to book flights.
Right.
And luckily my wife works for American Airlines,
Right.
so I can
Sure,
get on planes
Happens to-
actually for almost no cost.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she started making arrangements for not just for me and her, and also for my sister and her husband to be able to get to Chile on our flight plan.
Yeah.
The other issue that we had was after I went to talk to my sister, she told me that she didn't have her passport.
Oops.
So, huh?
Oops.
Yeah.
That's not going to go well.
Well, so the thing, sorry, she had her passport, but her passport had expired.
Mm-hmm.
So we have funeral on Saturday. We're on a time crunch, and she's basically taking a nap to deal with the information that I just threw in her direction. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm an attorney. I can figure it out on the internet. This is America. There's got to be somebody who can help you out in this kind of situation when
Sure.
there's a genuine emergency. So it turns out that there is. At the State Department, there is always an on-call duty manager of some kind.
Yeah.
And that on-call duty manager can open up passport offices to get people passports in cases of emergencies.
Wow. Okay.
So,
That's good to know.
Yeah, no, I mean, this
Seriously,
is,
that's good to know.
This is seriously good to know
Right.
for people, right? Because I mean, we were in the classic situation where you needed that. Flights were on Thursday. Funerals on Saturday. We could be on flights on. The plan was to be on a flight on Friday overnight, land in the morning, be there by the funeral. Everything was going to work just fine, right? So and also giving me things to do was actually getting. It's like you
Of
said.
course.
It was allowing me to process on
Of
the back burner everything that was actually going on. Well, so I finally get this lady on the line, and she tells me that. Well, first of all, this is how she answers the phone. She's like, "What do you want?"
Wow.
Oh, that's nice.
And mind you, this is the one person whose job it is to really kind of deal with crisis situations.
Of course, to help
Yeah,
you.
You would.
through
Yeah.
this.
No, this is a trip, right? So that's how she answers the phone. She's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I mean, I get that you're having a bad day, right? So I'm also having a bad day too,
Yeah.
Right?
right?
Yeah. Hello.
So I tell
Right.
so I tell her the story, and then just to kind of cut to the chase, she's like, "Well, you don't actually qualify." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
What do you mean you don't qualify?
I was like, "I've got these tickets booked, yada yada yada. I made all the
I'm a citizen. What do you mean I don't
And
qualify?
when I met all the qualifications that were actually on the website, right?
Right.
Like all this information is available on the internet.
Sure.
But the problem was, because my wife works for American Airlines, we fly non-revenue, meaning space available seats,
Right. Of
not
course.
space reserved seats.
Okay.
So even though there were 100 open seats on the plane, and we knew we were getting on the plane, she was telling me that since we didn't actually purchase tickets,
Lord, you don't have
That-
proof
What
of
a
seats.
nightmare, yeah.
I don't have proof of seats. So since we don't, and the attitude was, if you don't have proof of seats, then you're obviously not taking this serious enough for you to care about getting an emergency passport.
Now,
Wow.
I've got some questions.
Okay, I'm following you.
Right?
I'm with you.
I've got some questions first.
Yeah.
I got a question. Now, the relationship with you and your dad, is that something?
We'll get to that. Nothing's off limits.
No, okay, because that's gonna set this because I don't know how you seem to be able to function after it.
Yeah.
Well, you have things to do. That's the greatness and the beauty of the human. It has things in you that you don't even know are in there that allows you to handle crisis and to do the things consciously that you need to do. Meanwhile, your subconscious is going fucking crazy as to all the things that you want to ask, you want to know, you want to see, you want to that. But the reality is the human body lets you function in a normal, if I can say normal, a normal capacity. We need to get on a plane. We need tickets. We need to get this passport. We need to get the passport fixed. Blah, 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 blah. Until you actually finally get some downtime, I'm assuming, and then it all, hits you. But
Finally
you know,
clicks in.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm wrong or right.
That
but-
moment, what you're describing is perfect. I mean, the analysis is spot on. And I'll describe that moment where everything really sunk in too,
Right.
because basically I'm on autopilot correcting X, Y,
Absolutely.
and Z, right?
You're in charge.
I have to make sure that I'm calling the tailor that's working on one of my other suits to see if he can rush a set of pants
Sure.
because I didn't have a pair of black pants to wear. All these kind of little bullshit details,
Absolutely.
right? And the crazy thing about it is this is a side story, like a personal story I'll tell with my wife. I'm not going to tell too many of them so I don't get in trouble. But this is one because this is actually kind of a learning experience, which was that when this was all happening, I was just thinking like, okay, well, this is what I got to do. I mean, like, I wasn't entirely surprised because he'd been having problems for time. We'll get into that afterwards. And so I was like, my wife had a trip that weekend. She was supposed to go, I think, to a winery with a couple friends of hers. So my initial reaction was actually like, you know what, just keep going with your plans, right? Like, why would you let an event that's negatively impacting somebody else's life negatively impact more people's life, right? When it was funny, because actually, while I was on autopilot, just going through all these different tasks, it turns out I didn't know this at the time, but my wife was at home basically waiting for like just a question to like just ask, and I'll cancel all my plans, right? Because that's what we're here for. And it turned out that one of my friends, she was a nurse in L.A., Hollywood.
Yeah.
And she calls me up, and this is the reason why we're still friends, is because she's like, Dan, you're being a fucking idiot. Right? I don't surround myself with fucking yes men that are just going to tell me how wonderful I am, right? My good friends over time tell me when I'm being an idiot, right? Because I need that in my life. I don't need somebody who's just going to like fluff me whenever I fucking like I'm being an
everyone
asshole.
needs a fluff a time or
That's
two.
good.
Okay?
Fluff every now and then.
Okay,
Bad
that
thing.
wrong terminology. Okay, but so Soph calls me and she tells me that she's like, "Look, you're being a fucking idiot." She's waiting for you, right? She's already canceled all the plans, right? She just knows. So I was like, "Look, I'll think about it," because I mean, even then I wasn't 100% sold because my brain's just not functioning in a normal capacity, right? Well, then as soon as I get off the phone, like I start thinking about that question. And I'm like, well, fuck, that's obvious, right? Like, she's already booking the flights and doing all the kind of travel stuff. So, obviously, I call her, she's on board, and then I go back on to my series of chores.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so back to this lady you got to keep me on focus, right?
Right. Back to the lady.
Back to the lady who's
who
not
says
being helpful
you don't
at
have
all.
proof that you're on a plane.
Yeah. And I mean, this is like, look, I mean, to the extent that you believe that the government can do good things, you should probably hire people to do good things when they have the opportunity to do that,
the
right?
government
Like
doing
it's
good things. I don't know.
Hey, look, this was not their. I'll give credit to the people where credit's due, right? So at the end of the day, she doesn't help me at all, right? Like I realize that I'm like you're tilting the windmills here. Like she's just not going to help me.
Right.
So me, my wife, my sister, and her husband meet up at downtown LA at the FBI building, which is also where the passport office is, because there's a way to get an emergency passport in a couple hours.
Okay.
And I think our flight was leaving out of Dallas. God, it leaves at like 8 p.m., something around that time. So we had to be on a plane by 2 p.m.
From here to Dallas.
We had to be in LAX on a plane by 2 p.m. in order to make the connecting flight in order to get to the funeral on Saturday. So again, this is still autopilot, right? So like my sister's not good at like handling bureaucracy.
How's your sister handling it at this point?
Look, I don't want to get into her reaction because that's her story to tell.
Yeah.
But the only thing is that like I realize that the only way this passport's going to get done is if I go there.
If you do it. Sure.
And I start greasing the wheels of basically the government employees that work there, right? So the first thing that you do is you have to wait. I mean, this is just a series of waiting in lines, right?
It's the government. Of course.
Yeah, so we get
Yeah.
there, we got to get processed by the initial round of security, and then you have to go through a set of double doors, and then as you go through that set of double doors, there is a line, right? So you get in that line because there's nothing you can do. And I remember there was this guy behind me, like he was fucking like American, like 350 pounds, just fucking piece of shit complainer, right? He's wearing a green shirt because he's a funny part of the story.
Yeah.
And he's just complaining about how it's his third day. Because he's like hearing what we're there for. And he's like, oh, you're not gonna get your passport for another couple days. This is my third day here, and I need to get my passport. And I'm like, okay, well, you have a negative attitude, so I don't need to talk to you right now.
Right.
I
Block you out.
I got my own problems to deal with, right? So I get this person. I have their names written down somewhere. I can put it up on your website after the fact because the ones that deserve credit should get credit.
Yeah.
And there was this nice man who was working at the window, and I told him what was going on, and he was floored by it, right? Because this is somebody whose dad's probably still alive, right? And so he went and he said, "Look,
Well, if you're human, you can relate to someone passing.
Yeah, but working in the government, you get jaded
but
fast. So you're fortunate to have found someone.
Yeah, so I was looking for somebody who cared, right? And so that person ended up passing, like, getting a supervisor to come over and making sure that the application got on top of the piles, right? But then it was also a series of, like, the kind of stuff you're really supposed to do, right? Like, you go buy them coffee, right? Mm-hmm. You go remind them that you're still a nice person, right? Mm-hmm. You're not this jackass who's standing in line just fucking, like, complaining about the world. Nobody wants to help that guy, right?
Exactly.
Like, you can treat people in a way that they want to be treated, and then people want to do you favors, right? So that's basically what's going on. I'm just talking to the people. I'm trying to like lighten the mood as much as possible because I understand that this is the way the world operates. And the reality is we got to get out of there in 4 to 5 hours. Right. It's kind of unheard of to get a passport in 4 to 5 hours. And so I'm just killing the time outside, just talking to these people who there's a good dozen of them there who are all there waiting for 2 or 3 days to get their passports. And the vast majority of them, just in case your listeners want to know, they had booked international travel, and for people that don't travel internationally very much, if you don't have at least 6 months left in your passport, they either don't let you board the plane. They usually don't let you board the plane.
Seriously?
Yes. And that's what these dozen people were here for. They all had booked their airfare. They just showed up at the airport, and they weren't letting them board the plane because they didn't have sufficient.
They had less than 6 months eligibility or whatever on their expiration on their visas or their passports.
Yeah, exactly. So then a lot of these guys are they're in a super stressed environment, right? Because it's like they're one trip a year that they're getting canceled. A lot of them their partners had already left because like rather than have 2 cancellation fees or move ticket fees, the one party just decided to go.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm also like giving them tips, right? Because I'm like, look, I used to work taking complaints at it was part of the job that I did when I was at Raging Waters. Yeah. And when I took complaints, I realized that if people were nice to you, and you told a complaint in a certain way, you could connect with the person over the phone.
Presentation
on a human level, right? Exactly.
Presentation.
Right. You make a connection on a human level
immediately.
And
within 3 words.
That's life in itself.
Sure, but you have to understand this going into it, right? Yeah, as stressed 100%. As you are. It doesn't matter. You still need to refocus and present what you need.
But to have that's the thing though. Like I don't have that. I don't have the fact like if my flight's canceled and I need to be, I'm getting mad.
Yeah,
and that's going to get you nowhere.
Exactly, and that's what's making the diff. That's what Dan's. That's his point's being right. I'm trying to get your point.
That's when you do some yoga. You talk to a Buddhist, and you channel that anger.
For someone in their life to be able to refocus their self and their energy onto almost being like, okay, if I act this way, it's not going to get me anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's going to probably make me look like a jackass, and furthermore. And I wish I had that quality, and I don't think most people have that.
No.
And I think that's why you see the YouTube videos of people going off in the airport over something, or fights, or you have people disgruntled.
It's very difficult to do, especially under stress, like you were.
Well, and
very difficult.
Well, and the crazy thing about it is actually
that quality is just great.
Yeah, but it's actually counterproductive to engage, like to let the anger side out, right?
Absolutely.
Because we're not going to get into politics on this one too much, right? But
I won't talk politics.
No, I know, but real quick, I can make an example.
If you.
Okay, well, I'll use a different example. This
is the Sportscast. This is the Sportscast exclusive. We don't talk politics on the Sportscast show. So since this is the exclusive,
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll listen to it, but I won't discuss it.
Right.
Wait, no, here's-
You have a no politics
I'm
clause on this
Look,
show.
I'll use a sports analogy. You can tell me if I
All right,
butcher
there
it.
you go.
Okay?
See,
all
there
right,
you go.
all right,
I'll make a
play
connection
to
with
the
you.
fan base, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
play to the listeners.
Yeah, I'll make the emotional
Give
connection
them
with the fan
like
base.
something
right?
in football, baseball terms.
Well, how about like look, Muhammad Ali, right? He was a shit talker, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he was one of the best at the shit talking.
Well, the reason he
Absolutely.
beat Sonny Liston is because Knocker, you would bring it. He shit talked himself to almost make him look crazy.
Absolutely.
Exactly, but how
Thought
does
he was insane.
But from a psychological level, how does the shit talking work, right? You don't want the other person to be in a Zen state of mind.
Of course.
You don't want the other person to be focused like a laser, be
course.
thinking logically. You want to poke their buttons.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the more you poke their buttons, the more you can flood their brain, the emotional side of their brain. The logical side of their brain turns off.
Yes.
And this is a tactic that bullies have used forever, right?
Yes.
Which is that I get you pissed off. Now you're in a state of mind that you're pissed off, and you're putty in my hands, and I get to win, even if I don't have the underlying physical ability to take you down.
Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman right there,
Well,
right?
I think
he
that's
made
what-
a career of doing exactly what you're
Well,
talking
that's
about.
what, what's his name does.
thought he was a
Right?
diplomat.
Draymond Green
Huh?
for the Warriors.
I thought he was a diplomat.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's gonna
saved
talk
us. He
North
saved
Korea,
us from North Korea.
right?
Yeah,
I thought
exactly.
we weren't talking about politics.
No, we're not talking about. Even though Knocker thinks I have a Kim Jong Un haircut.
But I mean, that's
we'll
Draymond
move on
Green
from
and,
that.
and other professional athletes that do exactly that on purpose to take you out of your logical course of thinking.
Now that
to get
is
you
that
to
a
do
human trait that it's that is that like hereditary?
is
or
what
that
hereditary,
learned?
the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait,
some
sorry,
people are better at it than others.
Hold on. The ability to provoke in other people,
Yeah.
or the ability to respond, the ability to protect,
To
prevent
provoke.
yourself.
Like,
Yeah.
like you're talking like bullies. Is a bully something? Like, you get that from your parents, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Like, is that first and
Well,
foremost?
okay, so it's probably a nurture. I mean, it's like right, nature, DNA versus nurture, your environment, right? It's
Yeah.
probably more heavily influenced by nurture, but I would actually argue that it's partially built into our DNA also. And the reason why is so the name that I have on my podcast, right, is
Yeah.
the Machiavellian Game Theorist.
I told him that's one of the best names. I really
Absolutely.
like it. I
Yeah.
really think it's
So
catchy, and I like it.
We can get into that afterwards, but basically, game theory is the study of human interaction.
Yes.
And it's designed basically to study whether or not bullying is effective. Like basically, you can sum daily interaction.
Effective in what way?
Let me give you an example, right? So say we boil down life into a series of kind moves and a series of dick moves, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the classic prisoner's dilemma. So like to the extent that I extend my hand out to you and with a kind move, and you respond back with a kind move to me,
Okay.
and I respond back with a kind move to you,
Right.
and we just do this for the rest of our lives. Then,
I
Stay on the mic. man.
no, okay, but you're following me, right?
Yes.
yeah, I'm following. Yeah.
So if we just do this for the rest of our lives,
Yeah.
then we have a perfectly productive friendship. And this
But
is one.
that's just not reality.
No, but the study of this is game theory, right? No, but what I'm saying is the study of this concept is game theory. All this stuff is studied with statistical analysis, right? Like you read
Yeah.
about this stuff online. So the thing is, the question is if your goal in life is to maximize happiness and minimize conflict, game theory is the way to do that, right? It's just the study of human behavior and interaction. This is actually if you look at
Explain for those that because we got a sports listener.
Yeah.
What game theory? People are like, oh, does that mean I play Halo when I
No,
fucking
no,
pass
no,
4
it
levels?
has- well-
Oh right, I just passed new Mario Kart.
No.
I got game theory.
Okay, but so you got to hear me out through the whole prisoner's dilemma, right? So
Okay.
one scenario is you and I both, right? We're the people in this example,
Okay.
right? The goal is for you and I to maximize happiness over time, because if everybody's known somebody that's been in like an unhealthy relationship, right?
Everybody.
A codependent, violent relationship, right?
Everybody.
And what happens is instead of offering kind moves, they offer a negative move, right? They offer a dick move. And when it's you or your partner, somebody offers the dick move first, we have a natural tendency in our
I'm
biology.
gonna come back with a dick move.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
And game theory actually studies the reason why you have a natural impulse to come back with a dick move. But the problem is when you come out with a dick move and I come back with a dick move and we have a dick moves going off forever, right?
No one likes dick moves.
Well, basically we get stuck in a negative feedback loop.
Sure.
Right? And basically if we keep doing that forever, look, we're going to start yelling at each other, we're going to start fighting. I mean, we're guys, so we'll turn to
right.
blows.
And so
We'll
what
get
you're
to
saying
blows.
is like and since you conquered that
Well, I studied
of
it.
not you studied it like you said because but you're saying you've gotten to the point in your life now where a guy could come at you with a dick move, and you're not going to respond with a dick move. You're going to come back with, okay, this guy's not being nice right now. His negative energy is something I don't need to deal with. I'll give him some positive and then walk away.
Exactly. I mean, there's different strategies that you employ, but when you start to see people in terms of dick moves or positive moves, right? You just respond back to the positivity with positivity, right? And to the extent there's a couple different ways you can handle the dick move. If it's coming from a complete stranger, you're usually best off just smiling and walking away, cutting that person out of your life. You just don't need that crap, right? And if you practice like emotional control through yoga or meditation, then you're not actually going to give the other person control to raise your blood pressure, right? Because raising your blood pressure is bad for you. You could have a heart attack from that. Why anybody would give that power to a stranger is really beyond me. But we don't practice it, right? And if you need to practice not keeping your emotions under control, right? So, but there's the other thing too. Say you're getting in a situation with your partner, right? So say your partner, everybody has a bad day in life, and your partner comes home and they're just like, without realizing it, they're sharing their bad shit. They're dumping their bad shit on you, right? But you've also had a bad day too. So you're defensive because you're having a bad day also. So you snap at them, and then they've already at almost their peak capacity for stress that they can handle for the day, and they snap right back at you, right? And then you end up blowing up at each other, and you end up in this negative.
How most fights happen,
right? And you end up in this negative feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
The difference between healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships is the ability to recognize when you're caught in one of those loops, and to be able to guide yourself out of them. And there's a series.
Is this something that a person can? Is this something that a person learns?
Yes, studying game theory. Look, I can't explain all of game theory to you in a 1 hour podcast.
They need to go to your
but it is learned behavior.
It is learned behavior. The strategy that I'm describing has been studied for decades, and the science is solved.
Because you have to make a conscious.
It's actually kind of I can compare things because I've learned things from you. Now, and I've learned it from seeing how you react, and like Dan said, you come home from a stressful day of work. I've seen you on numerous occasions when I was younger. You come home, and every little thing pisses you off. And that is something that I think I've translated in myself, because when before that, I'm at a better situation now in my job, but back when I started, I had to start from the bottom, and I did some work that I didn't very much care for. And when I got home from work, I found myself repeating your actions, and it's almost like I saw myself the day after, be like, oh shit. Like, dude, Dad used to do that all the time. Like, you know.
Sure. Move the camera.
What's that? Oh, does it move?
But you have to open yourself up, and you have to it's a very difficult struggle. It's a difficult struggle because
that's way better.
Your selfishness takes command to where I want. This is what I want to feel right now, and this is what I'm going to project. And if you don't like it, that's too effing bad. Where what you should be doing is
that's way better.
Taking a step back and saying, okay, I've had a shitty day. All these things are negative. They have no idea my state of mind when I walk through the door. Yeah, and when I come in blasting, that's just like you said. That's just negative on negative, and then you're just gonna. It's just gonna create havoc. So you have to learn.
Well, and actually, it's
put on your game face.
And it's worse than havoc actually, because it's contagious, right?
Yes.
So you've created an environment that actually maximizes your anxiety, and then you project that anxiety on your partner, which maximizes not maximizes, but increases their anxiety.
But I think it has a lot to do with someone. With the environment that they're in during the day, like Renee, he does 2 jobs. Like Renee, you got 2 jobs, dude. When you fucking get home, there's sometimes you don't want to fucking talk to your wife.
Yeah, sometimes.
Because you just don't really want to deal. It's because you've had so much stress during your life. I think because my situation's changed, I've seen my attitude change with it. I think it's very hard for like my father to get, if I'm going to whatever Watts, driving in traffic, because that's where he goes, an hour and a half each day back. 3 hours of your life every day is spent in traffic or being pissed off. For you to get out of that grind, to get out of that mood of not getting dick with dick, it's just that's hard. I don't understand how you break that mold.
Well, you have to consciously think about it when you get out of your car in the driveway. Think about what you're going to present when you walk through the door.
And I've seen you improve on that.
And you know what? Sometimes I've gotten to the point in my life where dog's on the line, by the way. I've gotten to my point in my life where if I'm having a bad day, I look forward to seeing my wife because she's the only thing that's going to make me smile.
Right.
That's good.
Coming home,
Right.
because
Well,
I love her so much.
And
you know
if
what
I can
mean?
interpret that from,
I'm just
but-
saying.
I know,
We're
but
being
also-
real
hey,
right now.
hey, but-
I
So
believe
if I'm
you.
pissed
I know
off
you're
in
being
traffic,
truthful.
I drive faster because I want to get home quicker. To
I
her.
believe that because
You know what
I
I
do know
mean?
you love your wife.
But if I could just interpret that in the way that I view the world, right? Like, is I see somebody that's having a bad day, right? And you got a lot of anxiety and stress, right? And I see somebody that's emotional intelligence is high enough to understand that if you look, and this is a selfish thing that you're doing. I think this is a good thing, but I think it's selfish in a good way, which is you have an understanding that if you unload all this shit onto your spouse, right, and it will not only make her unhappy, it's also going to be an environment that's going to maximize your unhappiness.
Right,
too.
exactly.
And what you're talking about right now is being excited to get home to an environment where you can drop the shit, right? Drop the dick moves, and you'll be greeted by somebody in a healthy relationship that greets you with a kind move,
Right.
where you can respond back to the kind move, and then you end the negativity of the day, and you start this positive feedback loop in your home. And I'm just letting you know that's how
And
a
this
game.
is the
This is how a game
this is
theorist.
what you-
This is how
game
game
theory.
theory analyzes the way.
I
that
try to be a positive person, so you don't know me, I don't know you.
Oh, dog,
whatever.
we'll get to you in just a minute.
I've been in reggae bands for about 10 years,
Yep.
and reggae music's all about positive energy,
Right.
and positive and
Yeah.
this and that, right? So I'm not Jamaican, I'm not Rastafarian, whatever, but I try to live by that thought, that creed, I guess,
Lifestyle.
that lifestyle about just try to be a positive person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Try to think always positive. Be a healthy person. You know,
And knowing you are a
and
pretty
look-
damn positive person.
I try to be, man.
Yes, he
I
is.
try
There's
to
not
be.
many times Renee's walked in this studio with the negative.
I've seen you upset
know?
maybe once.
Yeah.
In all the time I've
maybe
known you,
once or
maybe
twice,
once.
too,
Truly
you know?
upset.
Yeah. Do you want? Can we bring a call? Is that cool? We bring a caller in real quick.
Ask me anything.
I hope O-Dog is. He's breaking. How the fucking Yankees, motherfucker! They're calling the Red Sox. What's up,
guys?
Dizzy?
No, I'm calling to join the conversation because I love what you guys are talking about.
Cool.
I didn't recognize it as what your guest called, game theory. I just called it, at the end of the day, I always say ever since I was young, I said, you got to find a woman you can peacefully coexist with. And when you find that woman, you want to come home and you want to be able to chill. If you go home and you got to fight with a woman, that's not the woman I think you should be with. And that's for me personally. So I always say, look, everybody knows my wife, Trisha. When I come home at the end of the day and she's better if I'm having a bad day, which, I, like Renee, I try to stay positive. And when I walk in the door, this is the best part of my life right here. The rest of it is crap. It can be crappy, it can be shitty. But when I come home, I want to bring positive energy into my house. I want to be enjoying my wife, enjoying my relationship, enjoying my children. I don't want to just be pissed off more. I want to say, fuck all that, excuse my French, but screw all that crap outside. Here's where I thrive the most.
Right.
But I think,
outside.
And to be honest, one of the reasons I've always loved you guys is, and I told Naka this a couple of years ago, one of the reasons why I watch your show and why I love you guys is because you guys can give each other shit on the show, your father and son. I've never been able to do that with my father. And that's the dynamic that I've always wanted, just be able to shoot the shit, talk sports, have a good time, have some, I wish I could have 2 hours a week where I talk to my father about anything.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Well, yeah,
you're
making
and
me.
I've told Naka that.
It's fantastic.
So I've always had a ton of respect for that. And just one last thing, Renee is absolutely one of the most positive people I've ever met, and I love her for that.
Thanks,
And
man.
Sherry's also positive.
I try to
and
live
you
by
guys are
that.
Awesome, so.
I try to live by that creed and that mentality is be a positive person and positive things will come your way.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what I mean?
and
Absolutely.
And O-Dog, you make me get a little teary just because it is. And the more I grow older to have the time with your dad, like that I have with him,
Absolutely.
I've got over 400 episodes, 2 hours, 800 hours, 1,000 hours, or whatever, and tape and video that my daughter one day gets to see her dad talk with his. You know what I'm saying? Like the example.
Absolutely,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
just
I have
enjoy
that
each other and
forever.
have fun and have a good time regardless of whatever else is going on in the world.
Right.
Whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, but for that 2 hours a week, you guys, and that's one of the reasons why I do my show is because, there are times when I'm having a crap week, but, whatever else is going on, I know for those 2 hours I can forget about life, get in there, shoot that positive energy, talk sports. Even if we're talking about it and we disagree, it's okay because it's just fun. And in the grand scheme of things, none of this crap really matters. We're just having fun talking sports.
It doesn't matter at all. And you get to your point, though, like you said about your wife, and I know your wife, and, like, I can see it. You can see in someone when they found that happiness.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like, you can see, O-Dog, when I saw you at the golf tournament, again, thank you very much for coming out. You can see how happy you are, man. and you got a kid coming, and like I believe you to the core when you say I want to come home to that person.
Listen, man, every day I walk through that door, I'm blessed, I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and I'm fortunate to have a woman for all the things that we don't have time to go into that we've been through.
Right.
But I'm just happy. And, you know, Trisha and I, we always, I say, honey, just stay positive, stay in faith, you know, whether it's God, whether you believe in the universe, whatever your belief system is, if you stay faithful to it and you stay positive, you keep putting positive energy out. And if I put Trisha on the phone, she'll tell the exact same thing. Like Renee said, if you keep being positive energy attracts positive energy. At least that's what I believe. So,
right.
You know, so I'm enjoying the show, man.
I
don't care if you don't talk sports at all. You know what I mean? But I love it.
Man.
And I just wanted to chime in, give you my 2 cents. I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon,
Hey,
man.
tell
you,
your
my brother.
wife, you know we love her, and she helps us out every year. We seriously wish you guys the best, and we.
She's watching. She's watching your big ass head on the 70-inch. We got you up on the 70-inch TV. So I'm gonna go back and sit on the couch. And
Wow, that's commitment right
all
there,
brother,
man.
You take care. Appreciate the phone call, man. Thank
You guys
you.
have a good
I
night.
love you guys.
Bye.
Talk to you
Love you
soon.
too. See, I like that. He's one of our biggest sports listeners.
Oh, awesome.
And for him to enjoy something like that, that's what I
And
like.
the only thing I will say though, that I think this is such something like if we're gonna tell in order for the story
Stay on here.
in order
I'm
to
gonna say the dick. I'm gonna stay on the dick.
here's the thing. So but in order for the story to really to build, because it builds
Yeah.
off of itself. Like I'm cool answering whatever questions, but I think we're gonna get off track.
Yes, I agree. I was just gonna say, let's
no,
get
no,
right back
no,
to
no
the
disrespect,
airport.
no disrespect to the caller, right?
No,
But it's just one of those things. where
I like
think,
that we ventured in there. Let's
Yeah.
bring it back in. Let's
well, and actually for any other callers,
Yeah.
if we could keep open, I'll stay on as long as you guys want. But
Yeah.
if we keep the questions to the end, because they're just they're a distraction from the storytelling.
that's
the only-
fine. Don't worry.
Okay,
about
so
it.
we are now at the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, no, we're still trying to get your passport.
Yeah. So
You're waiting outside, and
Yeah,
people
so
are telling you they've been for 2 or 3
yeah,
days,
so I'm giving
and
people.
you're still hoping to get
So
it within the next hour.
I'm just passing time right now by
Right.
by basically teaching people how to file complaints.
Okay.
So just so they can, so that like
Right.
I'm trying to alleviate the anxiety that other people
He's
are going
in lawyer
with, right?
status to clear your.
Well,
brain,
and
though.
look, and to be honest, like when other people are anxious, I don't like it. It makes
Yeah.
me anxious.
I
So like
agree.
what like if I have to be around them, then it's just a small investment of my
Just
energy
trying to help the
alleviate
situation
their
instead of
anxiety, which
ignoring
makes
it.
everybody better, right?
Yep.
So the other thing that I start doing is the opposite of filing a complaint is a positive comment, right? So I'm acting under the assumption that inside this passport agency that there's a positive reward system, right, for telling compliments.
Okay.
So I asked actually to speak with a supervisor to get a positive comment card, right? At first, these supervisors think I'm going to complain, just like any one of these jackasses here who are pissed off, right? But when I ask for a positive comment card, her face lights up, right? Because now somebody's going to get rewarded, right? Somebody's going to say something nice about these people, right? So I've got time to kill anyway. So I use my lawyering skills, right? And I sit there and write like this 3-page, basically like positive comment, right? Saying the nice things about every single person by name of all the people that have been helping me along the way, right? I also mentioned the bad stuff that happened the day
This
before.
is something that I would never do. This is crazy. Like to think in the situation you're in to fill out a positive fucking report card.
Yeah.
It blows me away.
But
Well, I
this
mean,
is a
but-
study in humanity, right
It
here.
is a study.
This
This
is a guy
like,
who knows
this is why I
what's
want to do
going
this
on.
show because it teaches me like, God damn, next time I'm in that situation,
Take a step back
Yeah,
and
well-
Step
rethink
back.
rethink what you're doing.
yeah.
I mean, so if you want the tangent for this one, I mean, the tangent for this one actually might be relevant, right?
Yeah.
So when I was working at Raging Waters, there was a
Stay on the mic, man.
There was
Stay on the mic.
one of the days we were working, the power went out to the park.
Yeah.
Right. So I was in charge of the emergency medical department. So I was actually just laughing at my buddy who was in charge of admissions because he had the biggest fucking problem he'd ever seen in his life. Right.
Well, that's
So-
negative, Dan. That's negative.
Yeah, no, but I was just laughing, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, ha ha ha, right? Negativity spreads negativity. He's like, you're gonna help me out with this shit because you're gonna help me you're gonna start handing out cards and talking to people in line, right? So here's the thing: is that when the power's out, it's a nightmare scenario because people can stand in line all they want. The credit card machines don't work. The cash machines don't open.
Yep.
And the computers are down.
Nobody's
So-
getting in.
Well, also the other thing too is that nobody's gonna give you your money back. Nobody can process your complaint.
Correct.
Right. The only thing we can do is give out cards and say, hey, when this life event happens, write us back, show us whatever proof that you got, and we'll do what we can to make
Sure,
it
we'll
whole,
rain check it
right?
out.
Right?
Sure.
And
Doing what they can.
over the next couple weeks, right, because his office and my office were right next to each other, I'd help him go through, because I'm emergency medicine, so I got a lot of downtime, right?
Yeah.
I would help him go through these complaints, right? And some of them are like, you fucking asshole, right? There,
that signed Josh Pacheco.
right? It's like no, but it's like you fucking asshole. You destroyed our lives. We're talking shit about you to everybody. We're never going back to that godforsaken place, right? And it's like, look. I mean, how much am I really going to bend over backwards to try to help this guy who's already decided that there's nothing that I can do to help him, right? And then you get the other side of the equation, right? Which is, hey, look, I don't really have my receipt, but I understand that this kind of life events.
You're taking that card and you're helping that
right.
person, right?
Well, exactly, right. You're already going down there, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, God bless. Here's my, here are my ticket stubs, but I don't have proof of the parking. I don't have proof of this.
Sure.
Oh, they got season passes for the next year. They got coupons for season passes.
Right.
I mean, and you start to see the way that you can present. It's like, look, we talked about this earlier about the difference between subjective realities, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who was at the park that day actually experienced the same objective reality of the park shutting down. The same event, right? But some people with higher emotional intelligence, I'm assuming, or just other people that just had a better day, just they know how to deal with these kind of things. They were kind about it. They chose to interpret that situation the way that they did, and they got a better outcome from it.
Absolutely.
So I, observing this, wanted, especially in that crunch time, right? Where now we're back in the passport office.
Okay. Right.
I need to get. I mean, this is and a certain result of this is need, right? I need to be out of there in a couple hours. I'm not like these guys outside. So I'm pulling out every
basically,
trick.
you have learned from that Raging Waters experience that writing the letter or projecting yourself to the one person that said, "You fucking assholes, you've ruined my life." Your reaction to that was, "I'm not going to help you."
So remember that 350-pound fat bastard in the green?
They're not
in the
helping
green
that
t-shirt
son of a
and the
bitch
shorts, right?
ever.
He's been there for 3 days,
Right.
so I already have some information that day that if you're just a colossal dick, that nobody's really going to be helping you.
Right.
I'm also seeing everybody outside who's there for really a non-emergency reason, because at the end of the day,
this is why I like having this, because I'm learning about myself. I'm a dick.
For the most part,
but Dan, you're making me realize, I am, I have such a short. When it comes to certain things, someone
and that's
cuts
odd
me
because
off,
you're a Pacheco, because you should be able to schmooze.
Well, and I'm a fucking stoner, which you think
we're
that I have a lot
schmoozers.
more laxity, but someone cuts me off on the freeway, I instantly go into, fuck that guy, I'm going to go in front of him and pull on
that's
the
a
brakes.
Pacheco also.
Renee's one love, man, keep going,
My biggest thing
man.
is dude, I'm not gonna cut this guy off because he could have a gun. What if he shoots at my car?
See, I don't think that. I'm
You know what
I can't wait to
mean?
give this guy my
I'll
2
kill
bucks
you.
fingers.
Yeah.
Kill you.
Hey, but Josh, you also got to realize, man, you could actually raise your your blood
Yes.
pressure to the point where you get a heart attack,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
and actually,
I am so at risk.
And you're and Josh, just you stay with me, right? So you're actually giving the power to that guy,
Yes.
right? That
Over-
asshole,
over
right?
your
The guy
life.
that cut you off, right? He already took the physical space when he cut you off, right?
Right.
He already did a dick move to you, right? But that blood pressure sticks with you for another 15 minutes,
Sure.
30 minutes, and potentially you dump that shit off on your wife, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
No, and that
Jackie has been a part. Yeah. I've come home. Yeah.
you're gonna go home tonight. You're gonna apologize to your wife.
I am probably gonna jab hard.
Well, I was ready to kill Renee the other day, man. I'm driving down the 60. I look to my right, and there's a freaking Mexican flipping me off. My first reaction was to go over there and, just start some trouble till I
Right.
realized it was him. I'm
Dan,
just playing, but that
getting
did
back,
happen on the freeway the other day.
So you get to you're on your way to Chile yet, or you have your
No.
man to Chile?
I'm in downtown LA.
So
at the,
you're
at
writing
the
this
FBI
letter.
at the passport office because right now it's probably 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning.
You're
Yeah.
writing this letter now that
Exactly.
you said on your downtime.
We got there at 6 or 7 a.m. Now it's 9 or 10.
Correct.
The countdown's ticking.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling out every trick in the book, right?
Right.
And so when I deliver this 3-page letter with the comment card's this fucking paragraph, right? On a 3x5 card.
Right.
But I have attached a legal pad size 3-page dissertation, right? Because I look, my goal, the goal
It's to get that damn passport,
the
man.
goal is to motivate these people that if I'm nice to you, also the implicit threat here too, which is because in any good complaint, this is kind of like when we noticed when we started the conversation today, we started on a high point. And
Right.
because we're gonna deal with low issues.
Yeah.
And
we still haven't really gotten to the
well, there-
gist of it.
well, there-
I have so much still to get into.
I know that's why we have 3 hours, man.
As long as you want, man.
Yeah. So, okay. So
Okay.
we're at the
No,
airport
but
here.
just let me finish out this point
Right.
because it's important, right?
Okay.
Because that difference between the highs and the lows, right? This is
Yeah.
what good art is, good music is.
Yeah.
It's a good musician has the ability to hit the highs and hit the lows,
Of
right?
course.
So what I'm trying to do is raise the highs of these individuals, because when they already hear the low of the story, and I want to create a memory in them. I want to make I want them to understand that this situation is a different situation.
Manipulation in a way.
I mean,
Of course it is. It's psychology.
Right? It is. It's like it's game. Is this game theory?
well, I would call this more performance art.
Correct.
Like, and performance art is at its core emotional manipulation. Which is, and people are good at it. They're either good at it consciously because they study it, or they're good at it naturally because they're just a gifted artist.
Okay. Correct.
But this is essentially how artists like dance the souls of the people when they're making the connection. With them, right.
So go on. You present this letter.
But yeah, so I present the letter, and like I'm watching these people because I'm watching these people, and they're doing and they're literally doing as much as they can. Like they're literally trying. Like and they're actually giving me updates on the progress, right? And lo and behold, it must have been like 11:30. They call my name. Or my sister's name, right? Because it's her passport.
Right.
And so they finally call her name. We get our passport, and we're on our way in.
Okay.
I mean, we're on our way out the door.
Wow.
And then it was like, yeah. And I mean, the as I was walking out, that fat bastard in the green shirt was telling me that, like, he was like, "What the fuck? You have your passport?" They just told me that the machine was broken.
Because you're a fucking dick.
Because the guy's being a fucking asshole.
You're a
Nobody
dick.
wants to be around that guy.
You're still cool at this point.
Huh?
Like you're.
So here's the thing. Cool. I wouldn't.
No. So you're wrong.
Now.
He's not cool.
Okay, I guess
he
it's not
is
cool.
projecting
Yes.
calmness. Inside, he's anxietied out like a son of a gun, but he's made a conscious decision to not take that anxiety and project it negatively.
Well, I think
he's projecting it positively as a means to an end.
Yes.
I know if I do this, I'm not getting the passport.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
I got to do this, even though my brain is telling me,
Go the
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, because I
but-
get it from like yeah.
But total, about 90% true, right? About 90% true. The only part that wasn't true was that the processing of the anxiety wasn't there. Because I would describe it more as a state of shock than a state of anxiety, right?
Sure, you're still in shock because of the event.
The circuit breakers in the brain
Correct.
that protect you from really
Gotcha.
thinking about this stuff. I hadn't processed it yet, so
Right.
I couldn't be in the state of anxiety.
I got you.
Like that.
Gotcha.
But I'm just relying on the synaptic patterns that I developed over the years,
Correct.
which were these life experiences that I had, the memories that I have, right? And I was pulling on every trick in the book. And fundamentally, my life philosophy when it comes to asking for people anything, right, is I would ask anybody to do something that I myself would do in their situation. Mm-hmm. And since I consider myself to be a good person, and I'm an imaginative person, I would do quite a lot for other people. So, since I would do a lot for other people, I have
But I have no problems asking.
I have no problems asking, right?
Okay, that's different. Yeah.
Like it's like you went to a restaurant, right, and you really wanted, like you're at In-N-Out, right?
Yeah.
And you really love tomatoes, and you want extra tomatoes, but you never ask for extra tomatoes because you don't want, for whatever reason, right?
Okay.
You don't want to inconvenience someone's life. You're embarrassed,
Right.
etc., etc. Whatever, right?
Without it. Yeah.
Look, if you've ever worked in a fast food restaurant, the cooks make the food exactly how they want to. Right? They specialize it exactly the way that they want it. And actually, when people order specialized foods, good chefs recognize that somebody else wants the specialized food too, and they see somebody that really loves their food. Right. So what I found
That's
is
interesting, because I would think that if I went to a restaurant, I've always thought, Renee, it's same thing. Like my wife, for example, is she likes particular things which she likes to eat, and if she orders something that doesn't have, like, it's not, take this off, or I don't want this with it, or can you make it this or this. Even I do this with my order. Like, me and my wife both the same thing. We're kind of picky eaters. I always feel like I'm being more of a dick.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm insulting the chef that I'm not giving. He's made this meal, and it's not good with this. I'm smarter than him.
But so here's the thing: it's 2 points, right? One, you want to be careful when the chef has a signature item on the menu that they won't touch, right? But if you find that, it's actually a sign of really delicious food, typically, and you don't want to touch it. Just eat it the way that they're making it, right? Okay. Just ignore whatever your problem is with the underlying food, as long as it's not going to put you in the hospital. Just try it, right? Because if you find that kind of a chef, that's usually a good place. That's just a good tip for a good place to eat. Yeah. The second thing about it is the custom orders. Just be nice about it, right? Remember, ask in a way where you yourself would say yes in return, right? And what I say oftentimes, like, look, I understand that what I'm asking for is complicated. I'll pay for whatever the extra is, right? I'll reflect it in the tip, right? It's just you can convey in the eye contact. You can convey in the in your manner.
It all comes
It's funny you say this. I have a friend at work, who he's real quirky, but whatever. But he lives alone, but he won't drink a beer in his house alone. But he has a little barbecue on his porch, right? he will only make hamburgers.
Got it.
Right? So I ask him, well, Frank, don't you ever buy a steak and cook it? No, because they're too thick or blah, 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 blah. I can't see myself eating a steak. I'm like, well, ask the butcher to take that 2-inch prime rib and cut it in half. I don't want to bother them because I think they'll just do something to my food and it'll piss them off. I'm like, dude, that's their job.
It's funny.
Without you
I'm
asking
the
them
same
to
way.
do
I'm
something,
almost the same way.
right? Without you asking them to do it, they have no job.
I'm almost the same way now.
Right? But I understand his thinking. But what you're saying is present it to the butcher in a way that, hey, I want to get 2 steaks out of this.
Yeah.
Could you please,
also,
cut? And they're happy to do it. I've learned at my at my grocery store, at the meat department, they take pride in doing what they do.
Yeah.
So when you ask them for something special, it's like, I need your expertise.
Okay.
Could you please?
Okay. It's almost a building up for them.
Do something for me that's your trade that I'm not good enough to do? Can you please help me? And boy, they bend over backwards.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
There's this weird psychological phenomenon that I'm not really sure what the name of it is, but everybody's going to kind of understand it, right? Which is that when you're appreciating an artist, right? You're describing an artist, right? When you're appreciating an artist's good work, the artist feeds off of that appreciation, feeds off that energy, and actually delivers better work, right?
Correct.
Whereas when you hire an artist to do something and you don't give a shit, right? Because you're just collecting stuff, right? Like you want a Banksy not because you appreciate Banksy's art, but because you know it's the in thing to have a Banksy, right?
Right.
Banksy's not going to try very hard for your shit. He's going to do some art that mocks you for
Right.
being an idiot and
Correct.
Because
you're not going to know the difference.
Because you don't understand the difference. So he's going to draw like a giant like middle finger saying that you're a cocksucker, and you're going to proudly put it up on your fucking wall, right? And he's just going to laugh all day because you paid him $250,000 for it, right? Like, I mean, that's the artists love when they find other artists.
Correct.
So,
or someone that understands.
Exactly.
Sure.
Somebody that understands, right? Like, look, at the end of the day,
respect. It's respect.
Well,
you respect me for being a butcher, and I can do this and present this to you, and you're going to enjoy it, which makes me happy.
Exactly. So that what is it? The word you used, right? Respect, right? The recognition and the delivery of dignity to another human being, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is something that, look, my profession.
That's a good way of just the way you just said. Say that one more time. The recognition.
Well, look, it's so it's like respect, right? And then there's dignity, right?
But you just
hold
said
on,
it
but
perfect.
let me try. Right? It's what he's talking about is the delivery of dignity to another human being.
Yes.
Right? And,
that is such
let me explore on this one a little bit
Yeah.
more, right? Because this is something like my profession is filled with assholes, right?
Of course. You're all lying son of a bitches that want to take our money.
And also they're complaining assholes,
Oh my
right?
God, yes.
Who are self-centered and full of their own shit,
Yep.
right? And the problem is what they do is and again, like I'm not going to get too much into politics, right? But a lot of the last election was
Renee said it's okay. This isn't
Okay.
sports.
No, but here's the thing. Look, a lot of the last election was the professional class, which I'm technically a part of, right?
Yeah.
Forgetting that the working class are human beings,
Right.
and are entitled to some dignity also.
Correct.
And you can't just fuck with people. Like you can't just do dick moves to people and expect them not to do dick moves right back.
Well,
right?
that's just ignorance then. If you think
No,
that.
it's not ignorance.
If I'm going to be a dick to you, you don't think I'm going to be a dick back to you. But you see the worst. You see the worst almost in your profession. You almost see the worst in humans.
Actually, family law attorneys tend to see the worst in humans, in my opinion. But it's
Absolutely.
But you know what I'm saying, though.
Look, I mean,
Like,
there's an old maxim which is like, what is it? Family law attorneys see otherwise good people and their worst behavior.
Correct.
And criminal law attorneys see otherwise bad people and their best behavior. Like they're pretty respectful towards
Absolutely.
us, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because when you say that I see people at their worst, in a weird way, it gives me some perspective in life, right? Because, like, so say, like, my wife and I are fighting over who didn't feed the cats in the morning or who needs to clean out the litter box or some shit like that, right?
Is this really important?
Well, the thing is, but
in our reality, it is.
well, exactly, right? What you just said, right? In everybody's subjective
so
reality.
mean, Knock. That is so mean.
Well, Josh,
like,
look, in everybody's subjective reality, right? Whatever the worst thing in your day is the worst thing that ever happened
Correct.
to you, right? And so, shit, where was I going with this? Yeah, your job is to keep me on point.
No, but you were saying the fact that like that like if something's gonna piss at the end of the day, something's gonna piss me off. Like my wife, like that was a good thing. Like my wife's really positive right now. She's on this positive kick right now. Where like I'll get mad because the dog shit in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I've got wood floors.
Oh, no, I'm back on track, right? We're gonna sorry to cut you off.
It's
right?
okay. My dog shit in the kitchen, and I need to get over it.
Yeah. You do, right? You don't want to fucking dump that shit on your wife. Okay,
No, I don't.
Because somewhere out there,
no.
out there, there's a family splitting up that's got really fucking
Yeah,
problems.
like
No. But so, like, this is what's happening, right? So my wife never pissed
Yeah.
off a cat, some bullshit, right? That's
Yeah.
not the important part.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to a jail, right? Because there's a fucking human being trapped in a box.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So now shit starts to get real automatically because people are checking my ID. They got to open up the gates.
Right. You go to real life. This is your real life.
Well, it's not my real life, right?
Well,
It's
you're
theirs.
dealing with.
I
it,
get to
though.
walk into the building and I get to knock on the window and they open the doors.
Right.
Right.
These guys, these poor
That's
bastards
their-
have to live inside,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
And it's important to keep perspective, right? Because
Yeah.
whatever the problems you had after you go through this type of an experience, you walk out and you're like, fuck, I'm sorry, it didn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who cleaned the cat box. This fucking, I mean, you don't obviously there's confidentiality, so you don't share the details.
I
but-
think just just to close it up here, and then we're gonna move on. Because
Yep.
I want to take a break in about 5 minutes because I got to go to use the restroom. And you know me, I got a small.
Just
bladder.
go.
I could just
Like a
no.
little
I'll
girl.
take a break in a second, and then to get full turn here, it's like I
You
think
need
it all
to
comes.
sit down to pee or what? You can't just go behind the building.
Sometimes it actually feels better.
It does.
It does actually.
But we digress.
Yeah,
we digress.
Hey,
to bring this back full circle.
Hey, Josh,
It depends where
hey,
you're at, though. It depends
Hey,
where you're
Josh, you killed that tree at my mom's house peeing in the bushes when we were kids. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
See? I think I killed his my back there, too. See, so the sports guy's going to leak in here a little bit. To bring it back, though, as far as, like, your parents are such a big part of how you're going to shape when you grow up.
Yes, of course.
And you said something really cool to me about my daughter before we came in. You're like, you know what, Josh? Your daughter, because, you know, my daughter's a very personable person.
Yes,
but
she is.
She said she shook your hand and she looked you in the eye.
I always look at that.
And
Always.
That made me when you said that to me today. That made me feel so proud of her.
Yeah.
That I've instilled that in her.
Well, look, I mean, this is one of the things that our society is just.
And I think that comes from him. That's
Thank
the
you.
thing. I think it's just a passed down.
I've always
thing.
told you that.
Well-
Like I have table manners. Like I get so mad at her for table manners. If she doesn't have table manners, something that he harped on me for.
Yeah.
I think it's just all. It's just.
Sure.
It really, and if you're stuck in that
Well,
bad
you-
family, you're just fucked.
Well,
like you're
and
just
it's
fucked.
very
man.
hard to get
Like,
out of the
it's really
paradigm.
hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a way to get out of it, but the thing is, as soon as you're born, you start. Your brain starts your synapses, right?
Sure.
We're just a computer, a series of zeros and ones, right? Your synapses start to form, and your synapses start to form based off patterns, right? And the first people that you model your behavior after
Correct.
once you're born are your mom and your dad, right? And you're attributing to Penny what you learned from your dad.
Yes.
But I mean, more literally, it's what you and Jackie showed her from the moment that she was born.
Yes.
That's the vast majority of it, right? It's also, like the whole phrase, like it takes a village. That's one of the reasons why you want to expose children to as many good natured people, and to the extent that there's some deficiency that you have, this is why self-awareness is important, right? To the extent there's a deficiency that you have or Jackie has, you want to expose. This is how you should pick godparents. Actually, nobody ever picks godparents this way. They just pick their brothers.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to pick somebody who has a character trait,
Correct.
right? That you want to pass on to your kids
Yeah.
that
Correct.
you don't have, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually why I offered after meeting your kid. I was like, your kid's like a force sensitive, so if she needs a godparent, right? This is why I offered it to you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because I was like, to the extent that you see a character trait in another human being that you want your child
Because
to
I
have.
think that's where I've lacked as a father with her. Like, if there's one thing I lack with her, it's just I think it's hard for me to relate to a woman. First of all, I think that's the first thing I have a problem with is a dad.
Yeah.
Is just
A dad of
she
a daughter,
likes
yeah.
she likes girl shit. Like I'm just put it in layman's terms.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she likes girl stuff. Like
It's hard for you to connect.
And it's
Absolutely.
at times I feel myself like
Left out.
Yeah.
left out, but almost feeling bad as a dad because I can't be like
You don't care
like I
about
don't
it.
You can't nurture that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't
Well,
care,
well,
but your life cycle hasn't allowed you to know enough about it.
yeah, like I feel
To
bad
pass it
as
on to her.
dad. Like
Hey, but
about
if I
that.
could just let you know kind of like how I'm analyzing what you're telling me,
Yeah.
right? Do you know what a Venn diagram is?
I'm not that smart.
If you basically pick,
Renee knows.
I know
think.
it is.
but
Renee, what is
if
that?
you basically picture two overlapping circles, right?
Yeah.
And one of them
Right.
are all Penny's interests,
Yeah,
and
all
one of them
yours.
are all your
And
interests.
where do they
right?
intersect?
And the thing is that they will oversect somewhere,
Sure.
right? They're probably going to oversect more with mom than with you, just because she's a female. Just, I mean, like to the extent.
Of course,
Right.
that's why they have this bond. Like, but I also have this bond because she's my daddy's girl. Like, you always have that bond.
There's a place where the Venn diagrams overlap, and what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, don't sell yourself short that they're not overlapping 100%, because that's impossible.
because
right?
I do that to I beat myself up over that, not
Yeah.
being like, like, and because you're more of that, like, Zen, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have this whole philosophy to your life. I don't have that.
Mhm.
And I feel
Well,
like
that's
I'm going to
'cause
spread,
he-
because
that-
she sees me get pissed off.
See, that's because
like,
you and I
know?
and Pacheco's are reactionary people,
Very much so.
right? We take what's
Very-
thrown at us
very
and we
much.
react. Where, to me, what I'm seeing from Dan is, Dan will see the situation,
Right.
and then he just says, puts the hand up.
And then he evaluates
Let
it
me
really
evaluate
quick
and
with the
analyze, because
yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah, yeah.
respond
Yeah.
just to the stimulus.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
going to absorb it, analyze it, and come back
Then-
with the best response
Yeah.
for
Right.
me in this
Yeah,
situation.
and just with one really quick point, right? Like with a metaphorical hand up in the air, because that's an aggressive move to people.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Like,
I understand.
Sure. It's like to the extent that we're
See,
going.
he's
through
like
analyzing. Yeah. How do you like that one?
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because I don't care about what you're
Exactly,
talking
right.
about.
And you're invading people's personal
Correct.
space too. To the extent
Yeah.
you do that, you're inviting
I understand.
literally a physical.
But I
response
wasn't
back.
physically, to this example,
Yeah.
I just put it out there physically to explain my point.
Got it.
You mentally
Yeah.
are putting that hand out,
See, he's already
not
analyzed
not
that.
upsetting the other person by doing that,
Yep.
but your mind is going, okay, I've seen this, or,
Well, I'm just
or-
letting you know how you're coming off to me, right?
Do you think I know?
Correct.
What, I think I read this book called "Ego Is the Enemy" when we were on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
By Ryan Holiday. It's a great book.
Wait a minute.
It's
You're reading "Ego Is My Enemy" on your honeymoon?
Ego is the enemy. Yeah, I
On
did.
your honeymoon?
Well, we were laying out on the beach and we were reading, and that was one of the books that I wrote. So I try to read positive books, right? Anyways, I think where I'm going with this is that I think a lot of these reactions that we have as human beings have to do with your ego as well.
Absolutely. Self-preservation,
You have
ego
to-
paradigms.
You know what I mean? And that book taught me to basically, like, dude, take a step back.
It's not about you.
Get your ego in check. It's not about you. And I think all of these situations, like Dan handles things the way that he does, is because he has his ego in check. You know what I mean?
Correct.
I think he
That's a
knows
good
how to
point,
handle
man.
his ego.
Let me take
Instead
the
of-
stimulus.
I think if you blow up easily,
Sure.
right? I don't think you fully have the grasp of your ego in check yet.
And
See,
I'm
but I
very,
feel that
I'm
you
very
do.
trying
See,
to
like, I
learn
feel
this.
that you have your ego in check because of your personality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
like,
I-
you're not. You are, like you said.
Okay.
I love my wife. I love
Yeah.
coming home. Like, I'm happy.
And
like,
I think that's
positive.
right. That's how wars happen. That's
Sure.
how battles happen.
Sure.
That's how fights happen.
Yeah.
That's how arguments happen.
Yeah.
It's because egos clash.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do I take
Everybody has their own ego.
Do I take the stimulus and react what's best
Yeah.
for
And
me?
that's why ego
or do
is
I
the enemy.
take it,
Right.
analyze it, and what's best for the situation?
Right, but you also learn from other people.
Correct.
So that's
It's
I think
paradigms,
how
absolutely.
going through life you form your ego by other people's reactions, other people's actions, and learning from them what to do, what not to do,
Sure.
and also kind of dealing with your emotions internally.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Do you know what
very
I mean?
hard to keep your emotions in check and not
I
be
think
reactionary.
that's a big part of it as well.
And Pacheco's are
as
very
human beings.
reactionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it is. It's something.
It's very hard
Well,
for us
okay,
to sit
but
back.
here's
I
the-
want to wrap this up in a couple minutes. I
You
want to
got it.
get to break, and then I want to get to we
The rest of the
Chile,
story.
and we have so much still to get into, dude. So
Hey, it's your job to keep
I
me
think
on
this
point.
is the
By the
most
way,
like
reading
I
wasn't
think
the only
this is
thing
the
we
most
did,
like real talk we've ever had on this show in 6 years.
Well, this is
Like,
good.
People like it. I'm having
is
comments
reality.
already, so it's good. So yeah, where do you want to leave us off? So where do you want to wrap this up here, and then we're gonna get. Yeah, so you landed in.
Oh,
You're
okay,
still
no,
writing the letter.
No,
Yeah.
Then you got your passports now.
No, but actually, let's leave it off at that point.
And the
because-
fat dude
well,
said, "How'd you get your passport?"
Yeah, because at that point we get to the car and then we're on our way to the airport.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
like,
so
like,
I-
that's
turn
This
my-
is a good
turn
spot
my-
right here.
yeah,
that's a
turn my
good
computer-
segue.
Turn my sound back on.
Wait, are we still on for a second, right? 'Cause I just
Oh
wanna-
yeah, we're
I-
this is whole.
I'd prefer to close
down.
actually with one final comment on actually the conversation that you guys were having about
Okay, you're good now.
about the images that you want to project forward, right?
Right.
And to the extent that you watch Joe Rogan and like, I don't know if you saw the one where Jordan Peterson was on.
Oh yeah, I watch every episode. Of
Yeah, and Jordan Peterson talks a lot about archetypical realities,
Yes.
meaning like what type of image do you want to project to
Project
yourself,
to
right?
yourself,
And because you're
yes.
talking about being reactionary, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is being reactionary also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because what I'm literally doing is observing the surroundings, right, and choosing the image of myself, the mask of myself that I want to wear for a particular battlefield, right? And there, because obviously there's a different mask that I wear when I'm in a confrontational setting. I mean, I'm an attorney, so by like in an archetypical sense, I do combat with words in my daily life. So you have to understand what kind of attitude works. And one of the more powerful archetypes is the what is it? The warrior monk, right? It's the person that when you see them can go to 10 on the aggressive scale like that when it's appropriate.
Right.
But also can come home and hug their kids, right? Yeah. And can come home and be gentle, right? Because they also know that because they have to be able to extend both hands, right? You have to be able to extend the kind move in order to have the positive feedback loop with the family. Yeah. But you also have to your enemies to know that if you fuck with me, I'm gonna kill you.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you can balance those two, right, and you can project that off to other people, the surprising thing about it is people won't fuck with you.
Yeah.
Like anyway, so that was the one point.
Yeah.
Before we go, do you know who he looks like?
Who?
Max Scherzer.
Oh, you know what? He does.
Look at watch.
Yeah, pull up a picture.
Can you smile?
That's funny. There's a picture for. Oh, that's funny.
Kind of, right?
It's kind of like a little Max Scherzer.
It was like driving me crazy over here. I was like, dude, from this angle, you look like Max Scherzer.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
All right, guys. When we get back, we're gonna finish up again. You guys want to call the show 626?
They're calling questions, whatever. Hopefully, this is helping.
90-40. Yeah, I hope this. Like we said, we're helping out one person after this whole thing with.
Correct.
And just talking about life because all this shit
we're talking about. Hey, Josh, you're helping out me, man, just for having me on the show.
Well,
so you've already helped out one person.
All right, man. So we'll be back in a little bit. It's gonna take about 3-4 minute break. We'll be back right after this.
Underachievers, come on all you underpass believers. We'll give you the skills for street living. It feels pretty great to just give in, so just give in.
Dropouts, repeat offenders,
Sexually confused cross-gender benders. It's time to declare autonomy. You can choose to choose your family. Chop down that family tree. Once you stop yourself from caring about owning stuff, that's when you wanna start sharing. 'Cause all the things we want are cheap or free. Stop cherishing life, cherish living, and you'll live like a king. We've got
Yeah, it's from their Home Street Home musical.
Oh,
Right?
is that what it's? Yeah, it's like I had never heard that song.
They actually
before.
have a beer out right now called
Punk and Drublick.
Punk and Drublick.
Yep.
Punk and
My buddy
Drublick, yeah.
John Bussman, who's an attorney in what is it, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Orange County. You can search him if you need a good criminal defense attorney. He's who I'd use if I ever got arrested. Yeah, he actually gave us something for me for my birthday.
Oh,
Just
nice.
a 6-pack of it.
Oh yeah. Oh nice. All right. Again, we're talking with Dan Martinez again. For all you live listeners, just kind of tuning in now. Dan Martinez, one of my best friends from high school, attorney. He's telling us about his not incredible, but just this tragic, but yet
Real life story.
real life story of what people go through every day in this country. Of his father that took his own life a couple years ago in a way that kind of is tragic. Jumped off the top of his apartment
Look,
building.
I think suicide now is the 10th leading cause of death.
Yeah,
and
Renee, can you pull up
Yes,
some
it is.
statistics on just saying?
yeah, well, I can throw off a couple off the top of
Do
my
you
head.
have a
Right?
couple-
I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it's
do
the
you have
10th leading
one?
cause of death, and
Well,
also there's 22 veterans that kill themselves.
And
every
I was just going to say
Wow.
that I'm involved with Homefront Hugs.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
big
Right.
with veterans. Like, he's huge with the
I'm really
veterans, man.
into veteran affairs and
Gotta,
this
gotta,
and that, and just the amount of veterans that commit suicide on a daily basis
yeah.
is horrendous.
Well, and actually, I would expand even from that because look, to the extent that say 2021 kill themselves every day. Those are the stats.
correct.
Right?
Yes.
But if that's the state of if that's the literal stats when it comes to the suicide, that means
Right.
that there's hundreds, if not thousands more, that
Contemplating
are
every day.
currently living in a state of hell.
Yes.
Look,
Yeah, like living in that
and
state.
fundamentally, it's like a lack of being. Look, when you go to war, right? And this is how trauma works, especially PTSD, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the brain in terms of code, right? In terms of synaptic patterns, right? And the more that you're exposed to a particular pattern, right? It's like people dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts to encode on your brain that way. And then
Right.
what happens is like you start to get these tightly held loops. It's similar to what addicts go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start to relive this tightly held loop, and if you can't get out of that negative feedback loop, you lose the ability to interconnect with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You lose the ability to interconnect with your wife, right? And the crazy thing about this is there's actually treatments that are available to this that are
Right.
super effective.
Right.
They're not. They're a lot of them are Schedule 1 and not Schedule 2.
They're-
We can have an entire podcast about how psychedelics can
about
people.
taboo fucking shit.
Yeah.
that
Hey, it
people-
shouldn't
yeah.
be taboo. So I'm not going to
It
use.
I
should
agree
be.
with you.
I'm not going
It
to.
should be, but it is.
But I'm not going to call it taboo because it's Schedule 1 for a political reason. That's fundamentally what
Right.
it is.
It is called taboo.
And actually, one of the things we're going to talk about is I've got plans to set up a nonprofit, right? Which is that
awesome.
there's a power here that we can harness, right? Because ending veteran suicides is something.
That's
that
what Homefront Hugs is all about. man.
Yeah, and the
It's
thing
all
is,
about
but
that.
here's the thing: we'll talk about this afterwards because it's not really scope specifically of the show.
Right.
But we can talk about that afterwards because I'll pitch the idea to you about how we could leverage that actually to get them this treatment legally here in California.
Fantastic.
But
Okay,
we'll talk about that.
yeah.
We'll
All
do a
right.
special podcast just on that.
But
All
like,
right.
but like you said, though, there's stuff that the society looks at taboo that I really like. That's a whole different podcast. Like, I
Right.
think to
Yeah,
get into
yeah,
this
yeah.
Well, let's
stuff.
keep you on point
Yeah,
and
let's
let's
keep-
continue
let's
with
get
your
back.
story.
So you've
'cause
landed
we
in
got to
Chile
get
at
this going
point,
on.
right? You've
Okay.
landed in Chile.
No, I'm not.
No. He's got his passports and he's
Yeah.
on his way.
Okay, so we get to LAX, we get the flight down, we meet. We get to LAX, we catch the 2-something flight to Dallas, right? And look, this is beautiful. This is why everybody should have a flight attendant in the family or somebody with flight benefits in the family.
Right.
Like we end up getting 3 business class tickets and a first class ticket on the way down to Chile.
Do you
Gotcha.
believe your positive attitude had anything to do with that?
Well,
like
100
now that we're talking just positive stuff, do you believe that because you had a good like if I was a dick, would that same thing
Yeah.
not happen to me?
Well, here's the-
Even though you got on the flight,
do
you
you
would
know
have
what
got
I'm
3
saying, though?
coach
Like,
tickets.
Is that your belief?
Oh, you mean
like the karma almost?
You mean
Did
about
you
the
believe
you
in
mean
karma?
well, you mean about the first class ticket specifically, or you mean
Just-
because here this is the way that I analyze it, right?
Yeah.
Because fundamentally the tickets would be what they were anyway, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't have been on the flight if I didn't have the passport.
Right.
That's the way that I look at it.
Okay.
And if I hadn't and if I had acted the same way as the other person did, the evidence suggests that I would have been walking out like he did without his passport.
Okay.
And that's
Just
what
gonna
I'm
hold
saying.
on there. Okay,
to
so
the
you're in the
so
air.
to the extent I was positively reinforced for the entire experience.
So you're in the air.
Yeah. Well, now I'm not actually in the air yet. This was one of the few times that I actually took the first class ticket, and everybody else took the coach ticket because I'd been on autopilot taking care of everybody by this point.
Right.
I'm sitting in the good
I need
chair.
some downtime.
No,
I need to decompress.
Look, I need
I'm
it.
getting the Salisbury steak.
Remember we talked about this earlier about there's a time where everything hits you?
Yes.
The crew was super nice because they understand when you're traveling bereavement. So they understand
Right.
the reasons why.
Right.
And they brought me like a bottle of wine. They're like, look, there's nothing like, we know there's nothing we can do to help, but this is the only thing that we really have
Right.
to offer. So like
Right.
they wrapped it up for me because they knew I wasn't going to drink it then.
Right.
And like the thing though is like that's when I broke down, right? In the
Right.
when I had my own little
When
private
you were
space in my booth.
that's when
Correct.
it hit, that's the punch.
It was the first time in like 36 hours, right,
Correct.
that my brain had stopped racing
Correct.
to the point where the gravity of everything could actually sink in.
Your rational mind is, okay, I'm on a plane. I'm in this seat. I've got nothing to
Well,
plan
there's
or
nothing-
do for
exactly,
3 hours,
exactly.
4 hours,
so
whatever the flight
now
is.
I'm going to be alone with my own thoughts, right? And that's where the fucking like
Right.
you
The
start
human
to-
body says, okay, now
you
you can deal with the
now when
gravity
it
of
hits
this.
you, what's the hit?
Oh, what do you mean? Oh, you're just a wreck. Like, I mean, it's the entire. I mean,
Do you go through good moments with your dad? Are you
Well,
thinking,
that-
why did he do this? Like, is it just a bunch? It's just everything? All
yeah, well,
encompassing?
I don't know.
It's got to be. I mean, you've been dealing.
Okay, so
you're
here,
finally.
so here's the thing: is I had one of the things I was thinking about was what am I going to say at the funeral, right? Because I actually didn't have a ton of nice things to say, right? So one of the things, and this is why
Can you elaborate
Been
on
there.
that?
okay,
No.
but hold on real quick. So this is one of the reasons why I picked Fat Mike for the song in the middle because his Cokie the Clown skit at South by Southwest, where he basically describes a situation where he responds to his father's death, right? Unexpected death was actually was almost the model that I used to get through this type of situation. And in a weird way, it sounds super fucked up if you've ever seen that skit. But in another way, it was an understanding that other people have been through fucked up scenarios also, right? And this is part of the reason why I'm here is because just
Of course.
like there's really two benefits that I've seen by publicly talking about this. I mean, there's a third one, but the two major ones are sometimes I see people who are really complaining about the shit in their life. And their shit in life is like say like they're royal, right? And they have a Lamborghini, and the worst thing that ever happened to them was a bird took a shit on their Lamborghini, right? And they're just bitching about it, and they're just being a negative piece of shit, right? When I see people like that, I'm like, look, I know exactly what you're talking about. My dad killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that to people, like whatever they thought, like whatever the worst
It
point
just
in that
slaps
day
them into
was,
reality.
Right? Look, this is when I didn't pull it to you in the same way, but when we talked about it
you saw me change.
exactly. And what did you say to me? Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you.
I had a few beers. I know you weren't drinking.
Yeah.
I had a few.
No.
I'm drinking mimosas since 6:30. Viva France!
Hey, but, first African team that won the Pro League.
Right?
That's a whole nother story.
Okay, wait,
Lord.
hey, but Josh-
that was the running joke at the house.
Hey,
It was a good one, dude.
Josh, it's your job to keep me on point. Okay.
That was a good joke. I'm gonna appreciate your
was a good
joke
joke
when
right there.
it's out there.
First African team to win the World Cup.
No,
That's
but
awesome.
I changed when you saw me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I said. What did I say?
Well, because the thing is, you're in what was going through your brain, because I know what's actually going through your brain, right? Is you're having a mental readjustment to whatever the worst point in your day was. So say, like, think of it.
Yeah.
No, but think of it in terms of a fraction, right? So, like, say the worst point in your day was a 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
And then you just heard a 100, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So your 10 just didn't seem that bad
not
anymore,
at
right?
all. It's
And what you actually said was, you're like, holy shit, I'm going to give my dad a call and say I fucking give him a hug and tell him I love
that
him.
what I said?
This is exactly what you said, right?
Wow.
Because that's one of the things, so one of the things is it changes people's perspective, right?
Yeah.
In the same way that the jail changes
that's
my
gonna make me
perspective when I'm
syrup,
having a
I even
shitty
said
day.
that.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So, I mean, perspective's an important
Yeah.
thing, right? Like, whether it's light in here depends on whether the
Yeah.
sun's out or whether it's nighttime out, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a relativity. It's a...
Fuck
So-
yeah, I can't. I love you.
I love you too.
Right, but I remember that was
I'm very touched by that first reaction because that was a reaction not pre-planned, not
Dude, that was it. And
organized.
You say truth
So
when
the
you're
first
drunk.
thing that
I mean,
you
I
thought
was-
about was me.
I
That's awesome.
I was 6 mimosas deep.
Well,
at
and
that point.
But still, I think that's awesome. It's
But
very
here's
humbling.
What's also here's the other thing too is that, like, I mean, this is just like I don't have the excess mental capacity, right? Like, to tell lies. It's just not something that, like, it's
Right.
not worth the mental effort to me, right?
Right.
It's so much easier to tell the
You
truth.
know what?
Right.
And that's fucking ironic that you're a lawyer.
Yeah. All right. But then again, you could probably tell that there's a reason why people pay me to tell their story for them.
Yeah,
Like,
Right?
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so go on.
But yeah,
Go on.
so I mean that's one of the reasons why I tell them. And the second reason why I tell people, and I speak about this publicly, is because I know that there's somebody out there, and our culture has what I consider to be a sickness, which is that we don't talk about things that we perceive to be embarrassed. I mean, you talked about this about taboo subjects or stigmas,
Yeah.
right? So everybody has that person in their family that's struggling through this.
But I think actually, Dan, to your point, I think it's actually becoming more in society. People are actually feeling
Trying to turn the
I think
page.
that's how society
We're
is
trying
going.
to turn the page.
We're trying. I think, but like, especially not to say the Me Too movement and all that shit, but
Yeah.
but it's almost getting like.
Well, I mean, look.
Sometimes it's almost pushed to the point where it's exhausted.
Well, no, I mean, I hope we get to that point too. But I mean, in particular, when you're looking at what's going on college campuses, how comedians like can't go to tell jokes on college campuses anymore.
Oh, it's horrible.
No, I mean, here's the thing too. Like, I'll give you two examples. Right, one is the ACLU used to be a defender of free speech, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And now they're putting their social justice. I mean, this is just objective, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The
whether
whole
you think
world
this is a
is
good thing or a
social
bad thing, this is not me imposing my ideological viewpoint on anybody. That's the Machiavellian part, right? It's like I'm not imposing my ideological viewpoint. I'm just doing an unbiased analysis here, right?
Yeah.
And and this was actually I think it was a leaked email from the ACLU. And what they're literally doing is putting their social justice agenda above the First Amendment agenda.
Right.
And this is just categorically different than they were structured, say, when they were defending the right for the KKK to be able to march down the street, right? And you can, it's that whole, look, what you say is reprehensible, but I'll fight for your ability to say
Your right
it,
to do it.
Exactly, right. And it's like flag burning may be reprehensible, but even the late...
But you're free still to do it if you want.
And the late Justice Scalia, right, I actually took a class from him in my law school.
Uh-huh.
And he had actually talked about how I think he was the dissent in that case. And it was one of the decisions that somebody had asked him, like, which case do you regret the vote the most?
Right.
And that's the one that he said, because his attitude was like, fuck those hippies, right? I won't think that they can burn the flag.
Right.
But then afterwards, I'm pretty sure it was a John Paul Stevens decision, he was so almost moved by how it grew to be emblematic of what the First Amendment should be, that he had wished that he had seen that and been ahead of it. And the fact that he had that level of self-awareness was really amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. Okay, let's get back to your trip now.
Yeah, so
You're
now
flying on the plane.
So now I'm landing in Chile, right?
Okay.
So one of my uncles comes and picks me up. We've got to you land in Santiago. I'm just gonna skip forward to the next day, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we land in Santiago. We're driving to. I'm driving with my uncle Gonzalo.
Okay.
Uncle Gonzalo is the third of 5 brothers on that side.
Gotcha.
And
Was your dad the oldest or second oldest?
my dad is the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad's the oldest. The second one is Andres, who's my godfather, who actually recently passed about a year ago, or probably a little bit less than that, but in case any of my family on that side.
I don't know because even
So he's number 3.
All of these people, for the most part, live in Chile, so you never would have met any of them.
Now, just keep it short. Do you travel back to Chile
Well, yeah.
often? Like, are you before your dad's death? I'm just saying, were you like you knew this family? Like, you felt comfortable? Like, you felt like
I saw them a
like
couple
you went
times a
down
year,
there
yeah.
and you're like, I'm with family. Like, you know what I mean? Because some people have family that
100%,
live in a
100%.
different country.
Yeah.
They don't really.
No.
see,
I see them a couple times a year.
Okay.
So
you felt kind of comforted
yeah,
at least
100%.
when you were there.
Like I had good memories, like going over my
Good,
godparents.
okay.
Yeah.
So you're driving.
Yeah, so we're driving, and like I noticed actually like funny just kind of tidbit. I noticed that my it's about an hour and a half from Viña del Mar, Valparaiso area from Santiago, and my sister's driving with her husband, my husband's driving my sister, right, on the drive to Valparaiso. And I noticed that my uncle's driving slow, and I'm like, "Why are you driving slow?" He's like, "Oh, well, I think that I need to drive slow so they can keep up." And I'm like, "Oh, Mark, I'll make you a bet that you can't lose him if you try." And it was funny because it's just a way to take the mind off.
The tension off.
To take
Sure.
the tension off, right?
course.
So he started driving like a bat out of hell. Mark had no idea what the fuck was going on, right? But,
It's like, look at this asshole.
What's this jackass doing?
but Mark actually kept up too.
Very cool.
Because I mean, I just know
Yeah.
him. He understands how to drive a car, right?
Yeah.
Which I can't say that about everybody.
No, you cannot.
That's really a big clump. But so yeah, I mean, and along the way we're just shooting the shit. I mean,
Yeah.
my uncle and I are just shooting the shit, catching up, and I mean it's deep, heavy shit, right? But also we're talking about like where was it? Like some of the stuff I haven't really thought about in a while. But one of the things was that
Are you trying at this point to you're talking. It's his brother, right?
Yeah.
Are you trying to relive the good parts that you, like you said, you
Okay.
have a good relationship?
Yeah, it's
with
just
your dad,
good or
right?
negative?
Like, are you going back? You know what? Are you going back like, man, Dad? You know, we had these times. Like, what? Yeah, like what
Okay,
part
so-
do you go back?
so-
Is this
to?
positive or negative?
Yeah.
So here's the only thing is that in one sense, I was raised like if you don't have anything nice to say about somebody, you don't say anything at all,
Right.
right? That's kind of the approach that I'm taking.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I'm kind of curious because at the end of the day, I only know my dad from, like, say he was 30 when I was born. So I probably don't really have any memories from the first 5 years in life, and
Right.
no real.
How, just for the listeners and stuff, how long was he in your life, and how long did you see your, like, have a relationship?
He's
with
gonna
your
tell
dad?
us.
I can tell you, right?
Okay.
But what I'm saying is like, the first 5 years, people don't really remember most of that time, like
Right.
consciously, right?
They can say they remember when they're two. Yeah. Okay.
Right, you're probably remembering
Yeah.
a story that your parents told you repeatedly. But
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah.
So then your real memories kick in around 10, just for argument's sake.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first 40 years of his life, right? And I don't actually know that guy.
Right.
Right, I only
Right.
know the guy that was 40 years on. Right.
Right.
So it's possible that the guy that I know that I didn't get along with super well wasn't the guy that was
Correct.
Like,
From
look,
1 to 40, he was a great guy.
or to 16, 25, the guy, you know, like how we knew each other, right? The
Yeah.
fun times where
Right.
we were
I'm
like,
so with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So like, I'm also
That's a really good point. I never looked at it like that.
it's perspective.
I didn't know
relativity.
him until he was about 30. Would you have me at 25?
Mhm.
I didn't know you till you were 35. Like,
Right.
I don't know who he was,
Yeah, yeah.
except for pictures.
For
of what I
real,
know.
real
Yeah, like, you know what I'm
memories.
saying?
And if you really wanted to do something fun with your parents, right?
Yeah.
Watch him with his friends that he had from when he was 16 to
Oh, I've
25.
seen him.
It'll fucking like it,
Oh,
Right?
It takes.
Oh, I know. And that's a really good point. 'cause
Wait,
I've
he was
seen
a
him.
real guy. He was a
Yeah.
fun. He
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed life.
Yeah,
he wasn't this
it's
sour,
not just some old
mean
fuddy-duddy
parent
that's always
guy.
being mad at you
Right.
kind of a
Yeah,
thing, right?
that's
Yeah.
a really good point.
Like it's about perspective, right? And
Yeah.
it's difficult because we have natural. Look, I mean, I think the psychological term's fundamental attribution error, which is that like you attribute, like if you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's phrase this differently. If somebody does a dick move, and you and I both do the same dick move.
I think that's the word of the show is the dick move.
Yeah, it's a.
But everybody understands it.
Yeah,
Terminology.
exactly.
Sounds like a dance that I want to create. Everybody do the dick move.
So, but to say you and I do the same dick move, right? When I do it,
Yes.
you're statistically likely to perceive that to be me being an asshole, like
Yes,
an
of course.
an internal characteristic that I have, like
Right.
a core characteristic.
Right.
But when you do it, it's because you're going to justify it away, saying, "Well, I had a bad day. I had this and I had that."
Right.
Right.
That's not really me.
But that concept is known as a fundamental attribution error, and it's one of like there's a lot of biases that are ingrained into our psyche, and they're ingrained for a very specific evolutionary purpose. But one of the purposes, I mean, I shouldn't get into like purpose or goal in life, but my personal purpose and goal in life is to control those biases as much as possible because of the life experience that I had, and in particular the DNA, the nature side that I share with my father.
Right.
I always I had this. Like it's not academic for me in a lot of ways.
At what age did your parents divorce at?
I was 14, 15.
Wow.
It lasted for a couple of years, but yeah.
So with
We have
that
a lot
being
in
said,
common.
with that being said,
Right.
and you saying that you
And I'm
you
sure we
think-
come with a lot of listeners. But go ahead.
and you think that basically you remember at 10. Let's we said that's the age, right? You
Yep.
kind of remember. You have 5 years of your father
Yeah.
being in the household every day. 20.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Are those memories to you look on those bad or good?
Oh, it's super shitty.
And you see how quick you didn't even have to think that.
I can recount the ones that are
So
the
with
pictures
that
that are
being-
playing in my head. Because,
Right.
Yeah,
So with that being said, when you were in that car,
yeah.
did you think bad or good?
I can relive this with you.
He
What-
really does. He's got a story like not
Okay,
the same,
I'm
obviously, but
I'm
he's
driving
got-
here. I know I have to deliver a eulogy to a person. A, I don't really know, and B, I don't really
He's
like.
talking about his own
Yeah,
dad.
yeah,
He's talking
yeah,
about his own
yeah,
Right,
dad.
and
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting
You're
that from
understanding,
you,
yeah.
but I also know he's my dad, and this is going to be a lasting thing. Whatever I say is going to be a lasting
That's
thing
a
to
really
whoever
good thing.
hears it.
That's kind
Yeah.
of what I'm. He
So
said
what
it
do I
perfectly.
wanna do
He's
with
saying
this?
How I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's at how like to his question how. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying,
you know?
is that what you're feeling as you're driving,
Well,
asking
well,
these
right,
questions?
that's what I'm asking.
Well, sort of.
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I don't really have anything positive to say. I'm telling you, like my attitude is since I don't have anything positive, I'm.
So what do I do?
Well, I'm leaning at this point to just not saying anything. I'm not. It's
Right.
not that I don't know what
That's
to do.
just
I'm pretty
fucked
clear
up.
that I know what I'm gonna do.
That's fucked up.
Huh?
I'm gonna say that right now. That's just fucked up. That you have to go. That you can't.
Yeah,
That's
but
your mental state.
Yeah, like
but
that's
whatever.
like that. You know.
Hey, but also I've been to
like
play.
that
Look,
sucks,
I've
man.
been to
like
play,
I know as a friend to a friend that sucks.
Yeah. But
And so okay, so
it's not the worst thing that happened to me that weekend. Let me say that.
Okay, well, keep
Right,
going.
I'm just-
So
I'm
you're
just-
driving with your uncle,
Anyway,
you're getting into deep shit.
but here's the thing too: is I also have the understanding that it's this guy's brother, right?
Exactly.
He's known him longer than me.
God,
Right.
you're still in this. See, you have this mental strength that you're still thinking this in your worst moment.
Yeah.
No, it blows me away. I'm just saying it blows me away. You're still thinking about this other guy's feelings when you're.
You're unselfish in
Yeah,
this
you're
in this
unselfish.
stressful moment.
It's crazy.
Well, it's funny because I actually think it's a coping mechanism that I use when I'm in stressful times.
I actually
that
think
I-
it's a tool that I wish I had.
You can have it.
True.
Practice. I'll teach you.
And that's why you're here, is to tell people that it
Exactly.
can be practiced.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Meditation takes
Yeah.
time. Like, I mean,
Okay, so you're with your uncle.
I
and you're
studied
driving.
psychology for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And part of it was because of the life history, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, so we're driving, and then we get there, and like one of the first things we have to do is, if you do body identification,
Right.
right? So,
What?
yeah, I mean, you don't know this because both your parents are alive, but
But wait a second. You have to. You're telling me You're telling me you had to go in and see your father in a condition after he had jumped off a building.
Nobody there in Chile identified him before you got there?
Knocker, because that's where.
That's
exactly.
odd.
Yeah, that's odd. It seems
Yeah.
odd.
That's
to
odd.
me.
well, so the thing is that
His son has to come in.
no,
Like,
no, okay, so what happened was so the brother that was geographically closest,
okay.
which was in Santiago. Remember, it was 90 minutes away.
Mhm.
He was the one that got called to the actual scene when the incident happened,
Right.
right? But they take the body from that point, and then it goes to the morgue, and then the police do their investigation.
Right.
So at a certain point, the police have to release the body.
Right.
So at that point, an identification has to be done to make sure, just for the paperwork, that the body that's being released is the same body that was originally
Interned.
checked in. This
Okay.
is just technical bureaucratic
Got it.
shit
Okay.
that has to be
Paperwork shit,
done.
yeah.
So so the thing is, when I got to that area, right, the place where the morgue, for lack of a better term, if that's the proper term, it was me, my uncle Gonzalo, my uncle Andres, who's my godfather,
Okay.
and it was me and my sister. It was the four of us. And so they tell us that only 3 of us can go. And my uncle Gonzalo actually doesn't want to go because he was the guy that had to do the body identification for his parents.
Try not to
Sorry. He was the guy that did the body identification for his parents, and he really didn't want to do it again.
Yeah.
So my sister wanted to go. My uncle Andres wanted to go because they'd never seen. Look, there's an element
Is
to.
there a curiosity?
I think no. There's a the concept of a funeral exists in almost every culture we've ever studied in
Right.
humanity.
There's some
right?
sort of death ceremony. Yeah.
There-
some sort of.
there's a
afterlife ceremony.
closure that comes to seeing a dead body that, for me, when I saw it, it assisted in that closure period.
Mhm.
Right. I'm not going to be.
Do you think most people are like that, Dan?
I can't say what other people should or
Right.
would do. The only thing I could say is what I did and how it helped me. So the other thing is everybody gets to
Personally,
live their
it
life their own
helped
way.
you.
Personally, it did. Right. And when the story gets a little bit crazier, because it's going to get a little bit crazier.
Okay.
When the
I'm going to break it down little piece by
yeah,
piece.
exactly. But I told you, you gotta let me
Gotta let him talk.
guide this one for 30 minutes, right?
Okay.
So
I have questions, man. I just found out about
Save
this
them for the
recently.
end.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right. So the thing is that I always look at the world through a mathematical problem. This is the way my brain operates. So they tell us that only 3 people can go in. So the guys, because Chile's a machismo-ish culture more than the U.S., they're like, okay, us 3 men are going to go, right? Your sister doesn't want to see this shit. And I was like, well, actually, my sister told me she does not want to be sheltered from this stuff, and she wants to see it. And she has a right to be there, kind of a thing. And I started realizing, I'm like, look, Gonzalo doesn't want to see it anyway. I mean, let's just fucking say that Andres can sign the forms, and then the 3 of us can see it. He doesn't have to see it. So anyway, at the end of the day, we take a look at the body, right? Do the inspection, get the paperwork done, and from there it's off to the funeral.
I can't ask questions.
No.
Now's a break point, so you can ask questions.
So I got permissions.
Yeah. No, but actually, Josh,
I have like so many questions right now. I don't care if I'm interrupting.
but if you want to do this, I'll tell you
Before midnight.
I'll tell you the natural point in a natural break in the story and ask your question. I'll pause for it.
Okay.
Renee's got to get home. He's looking for some action.
It's not like he's not doing anything but drinking. He's fine.
Right.
I have my question is like, knowing how your dad went out.
Yep.
If you didn't go see him, would you feel the rest of your life you didn't have closure?
It was never an option for me to not go.
You never thought I'm not going to go
No.
see him?
But also, that's just kind of the way I go through life. Is that like if I know that there's information out there and I don't try it out, like I can't. For me, the idea that there's information in a box and I don't open the box, even if the box is bad, right?
Right.
Like, I need to know what's in the box.
I don't want to be graphic or anything, but it's like the condition. That
Oh,
he
dude,
went,
it gets worse, dude.
Okay, the
I'm telling you,
condition that
like,
he went out in, though,
hey,
right?
give me
How
10
do you? I don't know if I want to just
Hey,
be like,
Josh,
can I see him?
Hey, Josh, do me a favor, man. I've known you for a long time. Keep that thought in your brain for 10 minutes later, and then you, hey, Renee.
'Cause I have that. That's the
remember
burning
this.
question.
Remember this. This point, right? Because I want
it's
you
my
to focus on
it's
this.
my
Right?
one question I have. So
Yeah,
I'll let
yeah.
you go
Remember
on,
that
'cause it's
one question. I'm just saying, hold off for 10 minutes, and then you get to ask the question.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So then we go to the funeral, and then the funeral. Look, the funeral is kind of an impressive situation. I mean, it's an oppressive situation because I'm hearing people talk about how basically the good parts of his life, right? 10 to 30 years old, all the awesome stories, like, and a lot of them was weird. It was super weird because a lot of it sounded like the shenanigans we used to pull off.
Okay.
And it actually was like, oh shit, if I knew this guy, maybe we would have gotten along a little bit better.
Exactly.
Like maybe if he wasn't just a dick
That's
all the
not
time.
the dad I
and
knew.
Instead, he was the guy that was friend. Like, so there's a theory of like relationships, whether we all have inner children, and to the extent that your inner child can play with your partner's inner child, and you guys laugh and play for the rest of your life, you guys are gonna be happy. And it's my guess is that's adaptable too to parents, right? You want to be able to play with your kids. You want your kids to laugh, and if you can maintain that playfulness, balanced with when they have to actually learn shit,
Sure.
right? But if you can maintain that playfulness relationship over time, you guys are gonna have a better relationship, right?
I'm gonna credit him for that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why you guys are here every week and you guys are hanging out. So, but we didn't have that, right? We didn't play. Ours was conflict. But maybe that's one of the reasons why I do conflict for a living too, right? Like conflict
True.
resolution. For
True.
it. So, anyway, so I'm hearing like a lot of like there's beautiful stories, right? I'm also meeting a couple of my uncles that I've never met before because my family's super artistic. But there's a couple members of the family that Chile was not a culture that tolerated artists.
Right.
So they said you're not allowed to do this kind of shit. So there were a couple family
I didn't
members.
know that at all.
Yeah, well, there was a dictatorship.
Okay.
Sure.
So you're always told to behave. You don't.
What is it currently?
I think it's one of the only examples of a dictatorship where it was a bloodless transition back into a democracy. It's a fascinating
Right.
story.
Okay.
I'm gonna do a podcast on that
Right.
one also with one
that's
with one of my
interesting.
cousins that lives in Cuba right now. Cause it's an
But they
interesting
weren't
podcast.
allowed free expression being artists
No,
under a dictatorship.
Well, that's the thing, and
Correct.
you're also told you have to behave, you have to stand in line. And artists like what is it? Like people that have no artistic ability are kind of like monotone, right?
Right.
But the artists can hit the highs and hit the
Correct.
lows. That's how they paint the
Correct.
picture. They create that relativity that we were talking about earlier. So, but you're not allowed to do that in a society that it doesn't reward extremes, right?
Yes, sir.
And our society does this in a lot of ways too. Like if you show too many extremes, right? Like you're a kid and you have what's referred to as quote unquote behavioral disorders.
Right.
They put you on Adderall so they can get you
Back
they can
to
get
the
those extremes
norm.
back in the normal, and essentially turning you into a zombie, right?
Right.
Like that's again side tangent.
That's a different. Yeah, it's a whole.
Each one of these is a different show that we
Yeah.
can do, right?
Yeah.
So, where were we? Your job's to keep me on track.
We're back with you're back in Chile right now.
You're
You're
hearing
driving
stories
with your
about your
uncle.
father
Yeah, so now,
that you didn't
exactly.
know.
So now I'm hearing stories about this guy who sounds pretty awesome,
Yeah.
right?
Cool
but I
guy.
don't know this guy, right? Like, so it's like, I mean, in a way, it's kind of cathartic because I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just remember these memories, right? Like, because one of the cool things
Right.
about the way our brain is work is if you don't like certain memories, you kind of
Shut
just
it out.
imagine new ones.
Correct.
And I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend so much shutting it out as processing them through and then like if you
Right.
think of your brain as a
Knocker puts it in.
Well, file
locker
it.
room
Well,
talk.
you know, you file it over here because it's just unpleasant.
let's use hard drive analogy, right? Like write over the files with a happier memory too.
Gotcha.
So you can train yourself to trigger certain stimuli with positive memories too. It's just the same way you train a dog.
Right.
And so where is it? So I'm like hearing these stories. I'm like, okay, well this stuff's helpful, right? And like I'm meeting a couple of my uncles, the ones that like everybody told me were crazy, and like one of them, like Oliver, I'm sure he's gonna listen to this at some point. He was like, do you know the point of the story he told? Because he gave this brilliant analogy comparing my dad to Don Quixote.
Okay.
And I mean,
It's funny, I have a Don Quixote picture in my house.
yeah, and I'm just saying, like, so, like, it would be a long side tangent story, but I'm just saying, like, I was like, I think your analogy was brilliant. We've never met before, and I think because he was like, do you understand what I'm saying? I was like, yeah, I think I actually do. It was brilliant. You seem like you understood him better than all these other people who were here. Anyway,
Right.
so I had a chance to meet this uncle, right? And then let's just say funeral's over. Now we're back in the apartment, and I'm with this uncle. because I had asked my uncles to not touch anything because I wanted to have a chance to like go through papers, to go through laptop, to go through emails and belongings. But they were like, we can't do that because our wives cleaned up the apartment because your dad was kind of a slob. So we didn't want you guys to come to that chaotic environment, so we cleaned up, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, you came from a good place. I'm not going to be mad at people, right? There's no guidebook for how you go through this kind of shit.
Correct.
So,
again, your positive outlook on things. You're able to separate it. It still blows me away. But go ahead.
So now it's me, my uncle Alvaro, and the guy that's currently living in the apartment taking care of right now, Marcelo. And Marcelo and Alvaro's trying to help me through kind of conceptually how you process this kind of information, right? Because at this point, we don't know whether he's pushed. We don't know whether he's. We don't know whether he's.
Thank you for bringing this up because these are my questions.
Exactly, right? That's why you got to give me a chance to answer your questions and ask the questions.
I'm going to let them just simmer until
all we know is he
I just want to know.
Well, Renee's holding on to that one question.
Right,
I know Renee's got one too over there.
For right now, all we know he ended up on the ground from a 9th floor balcony.
Exactly.
That's all you know. Those are the facts.
Right?
I still don't know if I need to raise my hand.
So here's the thing: is what I'm trying to figure out is intent. Intent's a very difficult thing to figure out, right? Because nobody really knows. I mean, like it would be easy if there was a note, right? It would be easy if there was a security camera that was looking up at the balcony, right? Some stimuli, some data points from up there. But so what's happening is like it's either he tripped and fell, somebody pushed him, and he didn't die with a lot of money, but he had enough money that it probably was unlikely that he was pushed. I'm just saying.
One question real quick.
Really?
Right, question.
How many times does he have to tell you to shut up?
Because I want to follow to make sure.
And I'll pause at a natural break. I'll pause at a natural break in the story to tell you. But
I might forget my question.
Then write it down.
Hello. Thanend you.
I got to talk.
Continue, please.
If you ever have something you want to tell your kid, right? Run it through a peer group because they listen more than the child.
Right.
Parenting tip, right? From the guy that doesn't have kids, right? So, okay.
Go ahead, I'm writing my question.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh. I love you. So here's the thing.
Shut the hell up.
But you couldn't interrupt me during the three different types, right? Because either he's pushed, right? Either he fell accidentally, or either it's intentional. This is kind of what we're processing through.
Right.
So one of my uncles, right, the wiser guy, right, is trying to. It's like, look, well, take a particular detail here. Like, say there were no glasses found at the bottom. Like my dad wears glasses,
okay.
So wore glasses. So there were no glasses found at the bottom. So does he was like, is that an indication? What is that an indication? He's like, what is that an indication of to you, right? Because fundamentally, it could either be an indication that he chose to jump, and on the way, I mean, he just didn't want to see the floor hitting him on the way down, right? So he just chose not to wear his glasses, right? Or it could be an indication that he couldn't find his glasses, went onto the balcony for a cigarette, tripped and fell, and accidentally fell to the side, right? So it became super clear super quickly that I wasn't going to have any idea which actually happened, right? Which takes you to a different problem. How do you actually process through three different potential realities? We'll get to that in a second. Because as we're going through some of these hypotheticals, and mind you, I want to highlight one point. Talking about this stuff is super helpful because some people don't talk about this shit, and if you don't talk about it, you're never going to be able to like learn and I mean just in general. But anyway, so at one point we were talking about something, and Marcelo chimes in. He's like, "Oh no, that couldn't be because the video contradicts that."
Whoa. The video.
Josh, this is the point where you're going to be able to ask your question shortly.
The video. There's video.
I have two jotted down.
But you're going to be able to ask your question shortly, right? So your brain works similar to mine does, right? Like,
yes.
So the thing is, like, I'm like, holy shit, there's fucking video of this shit? Okay, time out. I don't really care about the question. Why haven't you guys told me that there was video about this yet? So I'm like, well, let's go fucking see the video. I don't give a shit about going through his fucking banking records. I want to go see this goddamn. Well, okay.
Lord have
I'm ready to
mercy.
question 3.
Yep.
Lord have mercy.
Keep writing, right? So here's the thing. So like now we go to.
And there's no hesitation in this. Like I don't want to see it or.
Hey! You cannot break the rules if I can't. I'm writing my.
All right, turn his mic off.
What's
Renee,
the first
turn
rule
his
of
mic off.
The first rule of Fight Club,
first rule of fucking Josh Podcast is you can't overstep your boundaries.
Turn his mic off, Renee. Go on. I'm sorry.
So here's the thing: is no need to apologize. The thing is, so we go down to the security booth, right? And obviously, like, look, the fucking security guards are traumatized by this shit too. Like Marcelo, Marcelo's a friend of my dad who lived in the building. They saw each other every goddamn day. I hadn't talked to the guy in years.
Right.
And they saw each other every day. So he was the guy that actually, like, he's on the video. I mean, he's the guy that they called and like, hey man, your friend's here, right? So anyway, so I see the security booth area, right? And there's a computer. So my thought process is actually not to see the video. My thought process is, let's get a fucking recording of the video, right? And then when I have time to decompress and process this shit over time, maybe with a therapist, figure out if I want to even see it later, right? But I will have access to this video in case I need it. Keep writing questions, man. I'll be here all night. Okay. So what happens though is this is Chile, so the equipment that they have there isn't as great as the equipment that they have here. Right. And it turns out that they don't have any equipment. Like the USB drives that they have aren't set up in such a way to make file copies. So I'm like, so what did the police do? Because obviously the police got a copy of this. And they were like, well, the police sat here with an iPhone and fucking recorded it.
Get the hell out of here.
And I'm like, shit.
Off the monitor.
And so I'm thinking like, okay, well, and then the security guard says in passing, it's like, okay, but if you want to see this stuff, it's on an auto loop. Right. An auto recording loop. Sure. And they said by this point it happened like 4 days ago. So it was about to record over it in about 6 hours. Right. So I basically had a split-second decision. I'm either going to know for a fact that the video existed. Right. Because it may not exist in a couple hours. And I would either know the fact that there's video that could potentially shine light on what actually occurred, but I have to watch it now. Right. Or I don't, and I know forever that the video existed, and I didn't ever take it. I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I just did it. So I actually still have the video. And I mean, like, not to get into too much of a description, like, I'm probably one of the only people that you guys know that actually has a video of their parent hitting the ground and seeing the life leave their body.
I'm not speaking until I'm allowed to.
And now is the natural break for you to ask questions.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to make light of it all.
No, but actually...
I'm trying to bring a little bit
No, but actually...
You're in a very, very unique position as far as that goes.
Okay, no, but here's the other thing, too.
Extremely
Josh,
unique.
Before you ask your question, I'm highlighting Renee because what was the thing that he said before?
I'm going to try to jot my memory here. I think he was... Because it was so long ago. He was curious about, I think, your reaction of when you saw... The body.
And whether I wanted to see the body at all.
Right,
What did it look like?
Yeah, well, and actually, I think the question specifically was... I think this question specifically was whether I even wanted to see it at all.
Correct, yes.
And now I'm describing the situation where it's not just seeing the body, I'm seeing the actual video of the fall with the life leaving the body. Like, I mean, so this is more than just the body. This is the literal act of death taking place, right? The soul leaving the body. Or the synapses in the brain stopping firing.
With that being said...
did you have to record it?
Yeah, on my phone.
Video? Wow.
No,
like the cops on the phone, right?
Yeah, like the cops there, yeah. So
I'm going to stick with the video.
Because I couldn't bet on me getting a copy from the cops, right? Theoretically, that could have been possible, but what if they did? What if...
Sure.
I don't trust other people that much.
It's another country. You don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And they may not give it to me.
Correct.
If you didn't see the video... and there wasn't a video, would you have believed it was true?
Believe what was true?
That he actually jumped off the building?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's just thinking of my own dad, like, I don't think, like, I'm just picturing it and it's getting to me because it's like, what did that do for you?
I can walk,
like, it's blowing my mind that you actually were like, fuck yeah, I want to see it.
Well, it was
like why the like.
Well, yeah, you have to understand.
You know what I mean?
Well, you have to understand the choice I was presented with.
Because it answers questions.
We have to understand the choice I was presented with, right?
Yeah.
It's because at the end of the day, no matter where you are in life, you'll really, generally speaking, only have two choices. You don't get to pick an imaginary third. Like there wasn't no imaginary third one where like I was like, oh well, none of this ever happened, and I'm at Disneyland, right? Like that just doesn't exist as an option. But so you have to understand my two choices. Yeah. My two choices were to know, because at this point I knew, to know that a video existed. Mm-hmm. And not see it, and know forever that I will never see it, or to see it in that moment. That was my choice.
Yeah, you gotta have closure.
And for me, right? I'm not saying everybody would decide this. This is
correct.
Like this is your red pill, blue pill moment from the Matrix, right? Like, like this is like like some people would be like, no, fuck that. Like, and I swear,
I don't need to know. He's dead.
So remember that friend that I told you?
Yes, you said that. Like, sorry. You say that. Like
some people would say that.
See,
I don't need to know he's dead. I don't want to know.
Yeah, like
it depends on.
It's hard for me to wrap my brain around.
But
knowing
Josh,
that another mindset would want to see that.
But it's not that I wanted to see it. It's like I wanted to. But it's like I wanted to know why.
I need to No.
I need to know why.
I cannot process
He's got
the rest of my life unless
Do you think
I
if
know
you did
good or
see
bad.
that, you wouldn't have as
I
much
need the
closure
info.
as you have now?
Absolutely.
For me, absolutely. He's got this down, right? Like, it's like, to be honest, in a weird way, I feel blessed by having to be able to see the video.
Right, exactly.
Which is fascinating because that friend Soph, the one that snapped at me and said I've been a fucking idiot for not telling my wife that she should come with me to Chile, seems like forever ago, right?
Yeah.
She also, when I got back and told her this, she was like, "You saw the fucking video?" She's like, "You're never going to be able to unsee that shit," right? Which is, in a sense, true.
That's my next question to you. What do you say?
Well,
but you have to know.
That's burned in your brain, though.
But you have to know.
The synaptic patterns, right?
You have to know. Knowing the fact.
I know.
I'll say one thing though, is that I think it's everybody's decision to choose.
True.
Right?
You're right.
I don't want to phrase it in such a way where people in that situation they think
everybody
that they
should make your decision.
Right. It's like
right. I understand.
Like, do for yourself what's good for you. Like,
that's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. And then my other question, like Renee brought up, was like knowing how he went out.
Mm-hmm.
How do they make him look presentable to you?
Right. The trauma on his body. How does
you
that?
You know what I'm saying? Like
be presented on identification.
I'm sorry to get crap. I know because it's tough because I want to ask questions.
I know you're morbid and you get off on this, and I'm just kidding.
No,
I can fuck with you because I've known you for a long time. I understand.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I understand your question.
Let
me explain it to you. Right. Again, this is one of the reasons why I'm blessed for having been able to see the video. To be honest, because since I've been able to see the video, I don't know what happened on top. I don't. I know what happened the last, say, 15 or 18 feet.
Whenever he came into
And he hit the grass instead of concrete. There was a period of grass there. And to be honest, it was surprisingly peaceful. It almost looked like he landed on a mattress.
Wow.
Like you didn't see any visual deformity.
Okay.
That's my
That's what I'm describing. I was like, and to be honest, I actually extend this offer to people that I know closely. Right? I wouldn't put this online or any shit like that. But like to the extent that it helped people with closure in their life, because especially people that I'm telling traumatic stories to, I do still have the video. I mean, to the extent that you actually are curious about this shit.
Why would you hold on to that? What does that do? What does that do for you as a person?
Well, what if I can use it to alleviate the suffering of another human being and get something positive to come out of the incident?
Right.
Boom.
I can see. Boom. I mean, I can see it. It's just.
Well, your brain. I can see your brain's going to be like the synaptic patterns are going to reform
tonight.
I
just so many. Just so many things surrounding it. And as far as like, my other question I had was, when you first got your phone call, did they tell you that he had committed suicide or that he was dead?
They told me he committed suicide. Or he was dead and he committed suicide. I think it's translated from Spanish to English because it was spoken in Spanish, but that's what
from your aunt.
Yeah.
So you knew initially it was suicide.
I was told, knowing and being told something or different. Did you believe it? I didn't believe anything anybody tells me.
I have to see.
Did you think your dad was capable? Because people and I want to relate to people now as we get into it, because everyone has that person. She's got some stuff wrong with her.
You know, some of these
like my brother,
Josh.
I have my brother Chris, who I think at any time
he
has problems in his life. He's got a drug addiction. He's almost died a couple times. Mm-hmm. It's just like I see it in him as like I could see that happening. Did you see it as far as?
It would be a shock.
Right. Was it a shock? Is that why you took it so well? Not well. I don't want to put it.
Here's the thing is
you took it better than I would have. Let's just say.
I think you should give yourself more credit because I think everybody in moments of tragedy can choose how they stand up, right? So like I wouldn't necessarily assume that you would. Right now you're being hard on yourself, saying that you would react not positively in those situations. I would hope, and this is again something that like the Jordan Peterson who's on Joe Rogan's show, he has one of his videos about how if you're going to be at a funeral, right? Say it's your parents' funeral, right? There's going to be a bunch of people that are messes, that are wrecked there, right?
Yeah.
You can decide whether you want to be somebody who takes that moment of tragedy and alleviate the suffering of somebody else in that moment of tragedy, or right, and I don't knock people who do this, right? You might just be a fucking wreck, right? And if you're a wreck, take the time to be a wreck, right? Be careful of the doctors that are going to give you drugs because you don't want to become an addict out of the whole thing. That's a side tangent too, but but anyway,
but just be real.
Was it recognizable to you? That's
here's the thing: is like I think if you go through the story, you're going to get some of your questions answered, right? Because I'm painting a tapestry here, and you're kind of like we've drawn the legs of the elephant, but you haven't seen the trunk yet, and you're like it doesn't look like an elephant yet.
All right,
well
let's give me the trunk here.
Okay, so
okay, there's a drop.
Right.
Okay, so
print that, Renee.
Okay, but so now we're at the video's been taken of the fall, right? So now I've got more data though, right? But also I know that I'm not going to know what's happening upstairs.
Correct.
Right?
You still don't know what caused the fall.
Yeah, I talked to the security guards to see if they had a camera upstairs, and I at this point I just kind of have to. I have to understand.
But why do you need to know the cause? You know it's suicide.
Really?
How do you know?
If you're pushed.
You were told that.
But I don't believe anything that I'm told, right?
Okay.
Right.
And remember,
he's a lawyer. I want to know the facts.
You're right. No,
I'm not going to assume anything just because you said that's what it was.
You're right. Go on.
Exactly, and that's the thing was. I mean, and I understand that the world's more complicated than other people think, that other people see, and I get that most people don't see the world the way that I do too. So I'm not just going to see the world through my aunt's eyes, right? And she's a good person. I mean, actually, she's passed away since. But
you need affirmation.
Yeah, no, but I need to know that I need to process through the information the way that I need to process through the information. It's why I keep kind of pausing if I don't want any listeners who are in this situation to think that they need to process it the way that I would, right? Because everybody has to go through their own journey solo, right?
I agree.
Anyway, so so I realized that from the video is not going to reveal what took place upstairs, right? So I'm just not going to know that, right? I'm just not going to have a certain amount of information. Like the way that I kind of see it, like at that time I saw it was there was this stupid I've been told that I use the analogy incorrectly because it's supposed to be describing like a field of quantum mechanics or something that I couldn't explain because I'm not a physicist. But are you familiar with the concept of Schrodinger's box? Like, so Schrodinger's box, and on a very basic premise, there's a great Big Bang Theory episode.
Be basic, because most of our listeners are.
Okay, but if you're interested, then watch the Big Bang Theory on Schrodinger's cat, right? So it's on Schrodinger's cat. The basic idea is that if you had a box that was airtight, and you put a cat inside the box, it's going to sound fucked up, but I didn't come up with the example. And you close the lid of the box. It's airtight, and you wait 5 minutes.
It's going to die.
You don't know that. You think it might die, right? But the reality is, in that moment of time, until you open the box, you don't know for sure whether it's dead or it's alive.
Correct.
Right? So this is kind of the thought experiment behind the Schrodinger's cat, right? Is in a moment in time where you don't know if something's going to be true.
Even if it is a certainty, you still don't know.
You don't know if it's going to be a certainty, because what if you open it up and it's still breathing, it's still alive?
Because anything's possible.
See, the thing is, right now, and this is what's normal. This is what my brain was going through. Is I'm looking for certainty in this situation.
Right, and it's not.
But the reality is, and this is the hard part for people to accept.
Because you can't see the balcony.
I have to learn for a way to process through how to live with uncertainty.
Yep.
And so what I did was use this Schrodinger's cat analogy that I learned from Big Bang Theory. And so thank you, Chuck Lorre. Right.
Right.
I don't think that this was your true intention when you came up with that.
Right. He didn't have that whole big picture in his mind.
Yeah. And please finish the 2.5 Men. I want to see Rose end up with Charlie. By the way, anyway, but get over your spat with Charlie. Anyway, that's my own personal.
That's your other.
Anyway, that's my other cross there. So where was it? Where was I?
Well, you only have half the film. You don't see the balcony.
Yeah,
so you have no closure as far as what happened.
Schrodinger's cat, right? So the thing is, I'm trying to except instead with Schrodinger's cat analogy has two potential options: one live and one dead, right? But you don't know until you open the box.
Correct.
And in this case, you have to imagine you can't open the box, right? You just have to accept that you're never going to know.
Correct.
So how do you deal with in my case, three potential realities, right? And what I did, right? I didn't know what fucking better to do. Was I just started processing through each one of them, right? As if each one of them was real, right?
Right.
And it's actually like a comic book concept, right? The multiverse, the multiverse where you got three different. It's a Back to the Future, the different timelines and split apart. Yeah. Basically, I'm watching three different versions of Back to the Future, right? So it's three different possibilities, three different endings. Movies with three different endings. So, and that was actually something that brought me peace, right? Because I could assign different percentages to which one I think is more likely, but fundamentally I have to accept that it is not. I'm not going to know anything 100%.
Correct.
But the understanding that you're not going to know anything 100% and the acceptance that you're not going to know it 100% actually leads to a state of calm. So, other side tangent, right? Now I'm back in the States, right? Because now my project is basically over. I've got all the information that I need. So now I'm returning to the United States. But there's one other person that I want to talk to. He had a psychologist that he was going to see for 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
did you know this before or no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You should read my dad and I's emails. They're pretty fucked up.
Well, I'm not gonna probably read your dad's emails. But,
maybe if you want, I would post them online.
Is this Was he seeing someone for a certain problem?
Well, so the thing is, you got to keep in mind that artists, right, have this.
Your dad's an artist.
We come from an artist family.
Oh,
right?
okay. Well, that sheds some light on,
right?
on the subject. Yes.
So we have this spectrum, right, of behavior, right? And what happens was, like, he got diagnosed, right, like artists often do, with, hey, look, you guys are acting weird, right? So you should take this medication. And this medication will stabilize you, right? Have you ever seen the movie like A Beautiful Mind? It's illustrated in that movie, right?
Yes.
Where like there's the way that I describe it is like the mental energy is like nuclear power. If harnessed correctly, that's why I meditate and do all the things,
right.
because it's the key. It's the key to my sanity. Is that if you can harness the energy correctly, then you can do great things with it. If you don't harness it correctly, you can have a meltdown just like a nuclear reactor. That's why I think that the analogy for nuclear power is appropriate. But so and also the psychology in the 1980s wasn't really what it is today.
Correct.
I mean, we're making leaps and bound progress, but I think it was.
Do you blame pharmaceuticals for his death?
No. It's way more complicated than that. I mean, I do think that his. I'm not going to say the doctor's name on the air because.
Oh, no, of course.
You know what I'm saying is to the extent the doctor ever listens to this, I don't actually blame the doctor for it. I think the doctor was doing the standard of care in the psychological community according by the book, like 100% by the book.
At that time,
I think that the psychological community on this one is wrong, to be honest. So this is the like it's not that the psychologist did anything wrong because he did everything by the book. But we also used to have electric shock therapy.
Correct.
If you go into the history of like one of the Kennedy, hold on,
dude, we used to have bloodletting and all that kinds of shit.
And if you go into the history of like one of the Kennedy sisters was lobotomized because she was promiscuous, whereas the male Kennedys were allowed to become president, right, and attorney general. So what I'm just saying is like the history of the psychological community is not as sterling as people make it seem. I'm not saying they're not trying to do their best, right? It's a complicated issue.
Correct.
But what I do think was.
But we also know we're not stupid that pharmaceutical companies control a lot of.
But I don't think that this one. I'll go against the pharmaceuticals in a lot of different ways, but I can't attribute this one to them.
But what he's saying is it's the standard practice of psychology at that time to treat this particular thing. This is the procedure as to what you do.
Okay.
Now, 20 years later, if you find out that that's probably not the best way to treat this, it's not their fault at the time.
100%, and that's the thing.
That's a good way to explain it.
Well, and the other thing, the other thing too is that like. I'm super grateful for this doctor for even talking to me in the first place because
he didn't have to.
Remember, this doctor's got a file, right? That's somewhat covered by attorney medical
You're a lawyer.
privilege,
Is that
right?
illegal what he did?
Well, here's the thing. Well, it's fun. So here's the thing: is first of all, let me kind of describe. Let me illustrate for you guys, right? To paint the setting. So I walk into the doctor's office, the psychiatrist. I think it was a psychiatrist. I walk into the psychiatrist's office, and I go to talk to the secretary because and I'm like, I've got an appointment because I actually made an appointment. And she gives me like, she's like, oh, you got to fill out these like fucking 20 pages of paperwork. And I was like, my case is different. And I'm like, oh, that's probably what every fucking person that walks in here says, right? Like,
I'm special.
You're still self-analyzing.
Well, because I'm trying to get out of here as fucking quickly as possible. I'm trying to I'm trying to use the least. Look, I'm trying to use the least amount of energy as possible.
Blame you, doctor. I have no self-analyzation of myself.
Blame the parents. It's always their fault.
I am.
Yeah. Anyway, but stay on focus, right? So here's the thing: is I sound like a crazy person to the.
Correct.
If I am trying to tell you that I'm the only person this ever happened to, that's what crazy people. I mean, you shouldn't use the word crazy, but anyway, that's what everybody thinks, right?
You don't understand.
Everybody thinks their own situation is the most important thing in the world. That's what I was trying to say. So I'm filling out this paperwork, right? And I'm like, whatever, nonsense, yada yada, like. Anyway, so I give it back to the lady, and I'm like, hey, I know you can't acknowledge to me that other patients are even patients. This is just the part that I know. When I did the emergency medical stuff, I understand how HIPAA works, right? So, but I know for a fact, because he was my dad, that he was a patient of the psychiatrist. And it's very relevant to the problem I have to be here. So when you pull my file, or when you start my file, can you pull his file too, so we can talk about this together? Right. Because he's going to need a refresher on the subject in order for us to have a meaningful conversation, right? So I have to get past all these barriers to get access to my information. So now I'm sitting in there with the psychiatrist, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to level with you. I'm not here to fucking talk about me. I'm here to figure out what's in that file. So we have actually an interesting conversation because he knows I'm a lawyer from the paperwork. Right. And I don't know if this is 100% accurate or not. But we had a legal discussion before we had a psychological discussion.
Right, of course.
And the legal discussion was about who owns the privilege, right? Does the privilege go with the person when they die, or does the privilege go as an asset to the heirs of the children?
Right, is that part of his
estate, right?
Exactly.
And since I was the heir to his estate, I mean, this was the conversation that led both of us.
Sure,
at peace.
I can certainly see this.
This is the other reason why I'm not going to mention him by name, to the extent that he broke a rule somewhere along the way. I don't give a shit about it, so I'm not going to get him in trouble.
Right.
I actually appreciate what he did, right? So, but the agreement that him and I had was that to the extent that there was a privilege, that privilege likely passed down to the heirs. And since I was the heir, I now own the privilege, so I can now open the box, right?
Right.
So now we're opening the box, and I was just leveled with him. I'm like, look, at this end of the day, you had a longer relationship with him than I did. So you get, I mean, and
he probably knew your dad better than you did.
I mean,
he did.
Well, remember, he knew that first 10 years that I didn't know, right? So I was also, I get that he also was reading a story, right? Like he read a book and he didn't get to read the final chapter. I have the final chapter.
Exactly.
So I wanted him to have some closure.
Exactly.
So now I'm bartering information for information, right? So
such a goddamn manipulator.
No, that's not manipulation.
I think it is manipulation.
I'm offering the guy closure.
No, I'm not looking at as manipulating in a bad. I mean, manipulation is taken in a bad sense. I'm saying he manipulated.
He's talking common sense.
But you're both correct.
You've talked to this guy for most of his life, and now he's gone.
Yeah.
And you don't know why he's gone. I know what happened, and I know the physical reality of what happened and why he's gone.
And I can offer you closure.
Can we work this together so we both can walk out of here
better off
with peace of mind?
Right. Rather than both not talking.
Such a lawyer.
But also keep in mind in the macro.
Hardballing and
keep in mind in the macro concept too, right? In our culture, people don't talk about this stuff. They bury things inside, and then they end up with physical manifestations of stress. And it's like squeezing a balloon. There's going to be a pressure point that'll erupt at some other point, or it pops, right? And then you're fucked, right? Yeah. So the thing was like, so we were having this productive conversation. But now it kind of turns back to me because I'm the one that's giving him the information he doesn't have. And so I'm explaining to him like the three different possibilities and how I'm processing it through like the Schrodinger's cat thing. And I'm like coming to terms with the fact that I'm never going to understand. And he was like, I need to interject something. Your analysis is off by a bit.
Well.
And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, there's 4 options. There's not 3 options. One option is pushing. The other option is accidental. But intentional is something that takes a little bit more focus, and this is why we need to digest this a little bit more, like dissect this a little bit more. And intentional technically means you're choosing to end your own life.
Right.
So to the extent you put a gun in your mouth and you leave a suicide note that says, I'm trying to end my own life, that's kind of clear. That's as clear-cut evidence as possible, right? But there's a second option. And the second option is, like, I'll give you an example, right? Say you're at a spring break, and you decide to go cliff diving off that 100-foot cliff because you want to impress some girl. And you die, right? Because you kill yourself, right? Was that an intentional act? Yes. The intentional act of jumping was there.
But not the death.
But not that you didn't intend to die, right? So he introduced a different element to this, which was, again, remember, this was somebody that was treating my dad for mental issues for 20 years, 30 years. So the issue that was the idea that was introduced, that fourth option, was that he took an intentional act to end that resulted in the end of life, but he did it with a different intention, right? He thought that he may have survived.
Wow.
Right, and this is where things start to get gnarly, right? And this may answer some of your questions.
Yeah, because you're fucking with my head right now.
I know.
I don't see how that. I don't see how
that. You're gonna have to let me. You're gonna have to give me a chance to illustrate it for you more, right?
Knockers already told me to shut up, so I will do that.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I get that this is a hard concept for people to comprehend, right? I had 15 years of practice with this stuff, but this is why I started the conversation I did with the subjective and the objective realities. Remember, we talked about that house, right? Where everything you see in the house is real to you. But you have to access through the window, right? And that window is an agreed upon sounds that are coming out of our vocal cords, right? Objectivity, objective rules, right? And this goes to the emails that I was talking to you about that my dad and I had over 10 years. Because basically since the divorce, right, my dad kind of stopped wanting to work, like didn't really want to, he started to like go through like the classic Peter Pan phase.
Well, you can't fault the man. Anyone
No.
that goes through
but here's
a situation as he's gone through is going to suffer some sort of
a trauma. It's a psychological trauma. It's a completely understandable thing, right? But when you go through a psychological trauma, in particular one that you potentially could bear responsibility for, like the elimination, like the breakdown of a marriage.
Yeah.
You can decide that you're a victim, and you never did anything wrong, or you can take responsibility for all the shit that you actually did wrong. And most times you both did a bunch of shit wrong. So
correct.
Yeah. But the thing is, and this is my opinion, right? Because I don't know this for a fact. But my opinion, just speaking with him and hearing the stuff that he said at inappropriate times in public, was that he viewed himself as blameless in the divorce.
Whoa.
In the divorce. And
wow.
I mean, just completely blameless. Like it was. I don't want to give
That's just not reality.
That's just not reality, right? And the problem is, like this, we talked about this earlier. It's one thing when you tell stories to your friends, right? Or you make up lies to your friends,
right?
Because you want your friends to like you, or you make up lies to get laid or something like that, right? But it's another thing when you believe it yourself.
Correct.
Because once you start to believe it yourself,
right?
You only get one priority one in life, right?
Yeah.
So if your priority one is believing this narrative of yourself being a victim, which isn't true, but that starts to conflict with stories, right? Say like
dude, you did this. Dude, you did that.
Or say your son, right? Which is like I'm the living record.
Right.
I'm the only person that actually knows what really happened from the parts of his life that he doesn't want to remember.
right.
So if you analyze our emails, right? One of the things that happens is we go deep down the rabbit hole. And when we go down the rabbit hole, we'll eventually get to a point where he doesn't like the conversation anymore.
Right.
And when he doesn't like the conversation anymore, he starts to bend the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are the definitions of the language, the definitions of the word.
Right.
And when that starts to happen, I'm like, hey man, and I actually break the conversation this, and I specify, and I'm like, hey look, you're playing a dangerous game here. If you start to mess with the objective rules of the language, we're not actually having a conversation anymore.
Correct.
You're just trying to trick me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been dealing with you my whole fucking life, so it's not going to work. And it's more than it's not going to work on me. What you're just doing is disconnecting from the objective reality, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you disconnect from the objective reality, it's kind of like you're a balloon that kind of starts to float away from that window.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever seen the guys in front of the courthouse that just yell at the wall,
right?
Like they come up to you and they're like, something like that, right? Like,
yeah, so you're a random bum guy.
Yeah, you call them random bum guys, but I just see a guy with a series of synaptic patterns.
Well, yeah.
No. I know, I'm not. But no, it's not. But listen to what I'm saying. Follow the line here, right? What's wrong with him is he lost that window.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you, this is my conception of psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
He lost the window, the objective rules to be able to communicate with somebody else. In his brain, when he comes up to you, most of the time, if you look at them in the eyes, they're trying to actually communicate with you to say hello.
Mm-hmm.
But what actually comes out is this gibberish, because usually it's because they were on some kind of methamphetamine and some stimulant, and they were up for 24 hours or sorry, not 24 hours, like 12 days, and it damaged their brain,
right.
And they lost the ability to have they lost the ability to have that access to that window, right?
To communicate normally through that window.
Exactly. So that's why I use the illustrative analogy of the window, even probably though it didn't make sense in the first half as much, right? So, but the more he wanted to play with this reality, right? The more he picked this reality, this narrative that he wanted to live in, the farther away that he got from that window.
Yeah.
And one of the theories, right? And this is something that goes through a lot of kind of different elements of the death, right? And this was the one that actually clarified when I talked to his psychologist. Remember that he took an action, right, that wasn't intended to end his life. And this one's actually maybe the more persuasive of the four. Because one of the things that the psychologist said was that he had never once expressed a suicidal ideation at any time in his therapy.
Wow.
And normally people who before they commit suicide, they
have some it's said somewhere.
Well, they think about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then they finally pull the trigger. It's very rare to just be like, one day I'm just going to kill myself, and you just decide you're off yourself without even thinking about it. Like most people just don't even have the means of doing it. Takes effort and thought, right? But talking to the therapist also, there were also some tidbits in there that at one point in time, he had shown an inclination to think that his perception of reality was superior to the objective reality. So it's possible. Like he had made joking references, and actually talking to his girlfriend at one period of time, who's amazing. We're still friends at this day, right?
Okay.
What was it? So he had made jokes to people saying that he thinks that he could fly. And my personal thought, right, is that the more persuasive of the 4 options. Remember, I'm never going to know which one of the 4 options is true. But I think the more persuasive of the 4 was that, this is based off of on the email communications we had too, was that the more he tried to manipulate the rules of objective reality, the more he lost the ability to communicate with other people. The more he got frustrated and wanted to prove to us, because these are the conversations we had about subjective versus objective reality, the more he wanted to prove to us that his subjective reality was superior to the objective reality.
Holy shit, so he's having visions of grandeur that you all don't believe me,
but
I know what I'm talking about, and to prove it, here's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't want to use the term delusion of grandeur because it's a psychological term that has a specific meaning associated with it.
But you know what I'm getting at.
I know what you're getting at, because what I'm going to use the term...
It drove him to prove superiority.
I want to use the term subjective and objective reality because, like we talked about earlier, if you take a bunch of acid and the walls are melting,
correct.
To you that is true.
Right.
So it's
cold hard fact.
I don't want to use the word delusion because delusion to me would be almost a recognition that anyway.
But to him, it's not delusional.
Exactly. That's the point I was trying to make. Right. To him, it's not delusional.
Yeah, it's
to
reality,
him, it is true. Right. And it's possible. He's like, look, it's so true, and I'm going to prove it to you all.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to prove it to you all by showing you that I can fly.
Yeah,
right?
It's
insane. And that's why, like, it's the...
And that'll prove every other thing that I'm trying to tell you.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to try and wrap this up in the next 5 minutes here because we're almost on to 3 hours here.
Shit, 3 hours.
Yeah, we're almost.
I told you I can do this shit all day, man.
We're almost.
Yeah, I've already got a text, the come home text. I need your help. Come home, I need your help text.
Yeah.
I'm shaved and ready.
Call for him.
Hey, but actually, that's a natural closure point, to be honest. Like, so let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up there again, Dan. Where can they? Because you're gonna have you just built your. We're gonna get your website.
Yeah,
going,
perfect.
So.
Yeah. If you can plug my stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
what's your website at? Where can they get
the
you? The
easiest place to go to me right now, if you got, and this is the way that I always tell people, right? Is that to the extent that you got any value from my story at all, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're not human if you didn't.
Yeah. But to the extent that you got any value to my story at all. The Machiavellian Game Theorist, right, which is www.tmgt.us because I fucking love America. I don't want to spell shit wrong when I'm on fucking TV. But tmgt.us, right?
Good.
And from there, if you go to the support page, if all you do is follow me on Twitter and all that kind of crap, then like I love you guys to death. But if you guys can support me on Patreon, I'd like to be able to talk about this full time, but I need fun to do that. So I love you guys.
We love. Thank you for.
And I really do hope that I can help at least one person. To me, this is therapeutic, Josh. You're not taking anything from me by giving me a chance.
I cried.
You helped me just on trying to focus and like Renee being so positive. You know, we joke around and we never take anything really deep. But he is a role model. He is a very positive person.
Yeah.
And I try to...
And he needs to disconnect from his phone right now and take a compliment.
And I'm Renee, did you hear me?
Sorry, I got
I
got work stuff going on.
You're
and I
such
got
a dick.
over there.
Okay? But what I'm saying is out of just sitting here tonight, are you hearing me?
No.
Fucking connect for a minute.
Right,
Jesus criminy. But what I got here is you try and live very positive. The Rastafarian through your music.
I do.
You're always a very positive.
Yep.
I'm a borderline positive, negative.
I'm right
but
there.
I do understand the
Hey, look,
concept.
what I will say though is that everybody has different masks that they wear with different people,
Right.
and I don't pigeonhole yourself as just having one. You get to choose which mask you want to express.
I'm a Gemini.
Yeah,
I can project any mask
Yeah.
I want to. But I'm trying really hard to be like positive people.
Got it. Yeah.
To try and stay with that. And tonight that kind of cemented and gave me more conviction to try and do that because I can create my own world by being a positive person and analyzing
So it
instead
was
of
helpful
being
to you, right?
Oh, very much so.
Awesome.
Tonight was very much so.
Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you,
Josh
man.
Pacheco, the next Joe Rogan, right?
Right. We're gonna get you,
and you're gonna get me on Joe Rogan's show.
That's the goal.
You promised me.
That's the goal. 2 years, get him on Rogan. That's 2 years.
I'd like to meet Joe Rogan within 2 years.
What's your
Twitter and for like the Jordan Peterson. Oh, I gotta tell you this on a different story. Because like there's a Jordan Peterson Sam Harris discussion where Sam Harris got stuck in this logical realm and Jordan Peterson was like in a dimension above. I'm saying this because if they listen to this, I'd be super thrilled. And Jordan Peterson was talking like in a dimension above, where he was interweaving between the logical realm, the rhetorical realm, and the emotional manipulation realm.
Yeah.
And Sam Harris just got stuck in the logical feedback loop. It's a fascinating discussion.
I'm gonna smoke a bowl and think about that.
Yeah, please do.
All right.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, we love you, man. Thank you, Dan Martinez. Again, check him out on his new website, and we'll get his Twitter blown up, his Instagram. We'll get him going.
Yeah, please, guys.
All the listeners. We'll get him going. We'll get we got to get our Patreon going,
too.
I got that thing. I'm going to start that sucker up.
Okay. So, are we doing Sportscast tomorrow, or are we done?
No, I think we're going to try and do Sportscast on Thursday.
That no, that's Chase is in here on Thursday.
Oh, Chase is coming on Thursday to do a podcast?
Yeah.
Can you do a Friday show or no?
I can.
I can't too. Renee, what do you? We'll see. We'll talk to Renee.
Yeah, talk to me off the air.
Yeah, we'll talk to him off the air. I'm good friend because my
You're so freaking whipped right now, bro.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry,
I
man.
have work stuff going on.
I shaved and everything, baby. I'll be home, baby.
Yeah, let's do like a Friday sports because my wife's in Tahoe. It's a kid, so
let's do it.
Yeah, all right, we'll do it Friday. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Dan Martinez, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yo, Squirrel, drop it hard. Check.